Good morning. 9:07, not so bad. I've done that a little bit later, so we wanted to get settled here. We're sorting cards and waiting for everyone to be here. So welcome to our board meeting. Happy to see interested folks and familiar faces. As I understand it, we have no introductions or announcements today.
That's correct.
Mr. Leaf? Okay, that's not. Then we'll move right away to the roll call. Mr. Knapp will call the roll.
Member Andrews?
Present.
Member Bosler is absent. Member Griego?
Here.
Member Countryman?
Present.
Secretary Johnson is expected online. He has raised his hand, I assume indicating that he is present. We'll get him unmuted shortly.
Oh, good.
Vice President Valines? Here. President Dolan?
I'm here. That establishes a quorum. We will have one board member, Keely Bosler, who has a family commitment and just can't be here today, but she has been and will be briefed. And we have board member Johnson, who's going to be participating online. Thank you very much, board member Johnson. So that establishes the quorum. I will open the board meeting of the Central Valley Flood Protection Board for June 13th, 2025. I'm going to review the agenda first. Mr. Leaf's going to always tell me if I missed something in the list, but I think I've got it. And as I review it, I want to establish some information about the process for today and the speakers and the estimate of timing, things like that. The agenda is pretty simple. We have one item. It is a board item. It's not necessarily a simple item, but it is one item. It's number 4. No, we have 2. I'm sorry. We have 2. One is the public comment for items not on the agenda. And then the one item of the board. And it will be a presentation of the subsequent environmental impact report for the American River Common Features 2016 project. And once I get through this, I'll give you some information about the process. We do have some items on the end of the agenda, which you can stay if you want to hear about our next meetings. There's to be no closed session. And although we don't think we're going to be here till 5 or 6 o'clock, but we will be if we need to. Just want you to know that. But I want you to know I do call breaks. They're not scheduled. They're frankly when a board president thinks she needs it. All right. So that's the agenda. And do board members or staff think I left something out? Okay. Then we'll proceed to item number 4, which is there public comment from someone for an item that is not on this agenda? We have 2 speaker cards for that? Okay. Oh. I just saw this and I didn't realize that. Mr. Donald Murphy? Did you do 2 cards?
One for himself, one for someone.
Okay. When you come forward, even though I said your name, I need you to say it for our board minutes.
Donald Murphy. I live at 7260 Pocket Road.
Mm-hmm.
And I did fill out 2 cards. One is for Ms. Billy Ann Groza, my neighbor,
Okay.
who wasn't able to attend.
All right, so you'll be first.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Dolan, Mr. Leaf, board members. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I come to you as a very frustrated boat dock owner. My boat dock was moved in April of last year, and I've been fully cooperative with the board to make sure that we did everything according to the contract that I signed. I was given the excuse me, false hope that at the conclusion of the Erosion 2 contract, we'd be able, myself and other boat dock owners would be able to replace our boat docks. So the months have passed. I've contacted Selva a number of times asking for an update.
3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah, okay. Anyway, I can't get an answer on when I can put my boat dock back, nor can my neighbors that have boat docks. I'd like to be able to get that answer as soon as possible. There's a lot of costs involved, there's frustration, there's arrangements, towage, storage, costs that we've all absorbed. I'd say it's just not fair what we had to go through with respect to the delays and lack of information. So that's basically, I'm urging you to be able to provide me and the other boat dock owners with an answer of when we can return our boat docks.
Yes, sir. And I'm looking to our chief engineer to be sure that at some point soon you get an answer.
Okay. And I would also like a shout out to Selva and Greg Harvey. They've been very helpful,
Good.
marched along with me on this journey,
Okay.
and they've always been really good guys to work with.
All right. Thank you for saying that.
Okay.
We appreciate them as well. So now you have Billy Ann
Groza.
All right, you'll say the name.
Oh, Billy Ann Groza, 7454 Pocket Road. Ms. Groza is a owner of a legally permitted cross-levee fence. This dates back to 1968. I think her father was one of the first people to get a cross-levee fence at the urging of the Reclamation Department. The problem is, well, now she's got the minor alteration fence. She's under constant attack of vandalism. It's nonstop. There's homeless camps down along the river there, and the neighbors in that area have a complete disregard for trespassing and getting on private property. We have made requests multiple times to the city, who's supposedly responsible for signage, denoting what are the private properties and what are the public properties. We've gotten no cooperation. So my request today, is there anything the flood board can do to identify this area to prevent the trespassing or hopefully curtail it? But the damage to her property is significant. She's had to repair her fence multiple times. They keep ripping it down. So I urge you to find a way, if it's possible, to help her in this case.
It's more than noted. We're all writing notes. So yes, we'll do the best we can to have the proper authorities pay attention.
Proper authorities being whom?
Well,
See, that's part of the
Good
problem.
question.
Nobody wants to take
I
the
think it's all of us.
responsibility.
So we'll just,
The city has promised us.
Okay.
Councilman Jennings is, I've met
Yeah.
with him and his direct reports repeatedly, and the promise was, yeah, we're going to put signs up. Well, that hasn't happened. Okay, thank you very much.
all right, noted. Thank you. Those are the only cards I have for requests to speak on an item not on the agenda. I just want to be sure that I'm not missing someone. Got a big group here, so I see no hands up. Is there anyone online who's indicated they want to speak off the agenda? Okay. Oh. Okay. So now we'll move to the board item. Number 5. Number 5. I put together my own agenda. I don't always put the numbers. So we're on number 5, if you have that in front of you. First thing I want to do is apologize for the way the last meeting ended. It was not my plan, and I know that there are many who didn't like it, so I do apologize. I particularly do say apologies to the board and to all of you who still had cards, but we basically ran out of time for them. So today, we will have a presentation first. We have a panel in front of us, and our meeting will last as long as it needs to for anyone who wishes to talk. We don't have a limit of removing ourselves from the room. Second, I want to just give some expectations for this meeting and meetings moving forward. On our last meeting on May 23rd, we heard a very detailed technical discussion that focused on many things, but particularly on Contract 3B. And we received information regarding history and design and other aspects of all projects from staff of the Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency, which is the local sponsor, Colonel Caldwell and others from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which is our federal sponsor, and the Department of Water Resources that does a significant amount of work on behalf of the board and with the board and for the Department of Water Resources as a co-state sponsor of all the projects. There was a lot of information presented at that, and we appreciate the information, the presenters, and the homework that we are all working on that. Today, our meeting is an informational presentation. There is no action that is set on today's agenda. The presentation today will be provided by our state partner, the Department of Water Resources. And the discussion will be on the American River features, the 2016 Flood Risk Management Project, the final subsequent environmental impact report, or the SEIR, as most people want to use initials. And we will hear what the SEIR covers, multiple scopes of work on the American River Common Features 2016, so the discussion today will be a bit wider than the last meeting. We expect that presentation to go for about an hour, but it will go for what it needs to be, after which the board will be asked first if they have comments, questions, or input. And I want to note again that Board Member Keely Bowser had an unavoidable but important family event, and she's not going to be with us today. However, we do have Board Member Johnson, who is traveling, but he's online, so thank you for that. Both will receive the briefing and be able to listen to the recording. At the end of the presentation, and then we'll have at the end of the presentation, board members for questions. After board discussion, we'll move to public comment. We do want to hear from everyone, and we will. I won't cut you off at the end, but I will ask you to only take 3 minutes, and I think we've made that pretty clear. We certainly appreciate those of you who have taken the time to put in lengthier writing to us so that we can have it, and we do have it. We mark it, it goes on the record, and it's actually easier to review to that than any notes we take for your verbal, just to say that. As noted on the agenda, and by me, and once more, you will be limited to 3 minutes, which will begin after you give us your name. I just wanted to note that between April to the meeting in May, we received 300 emails of written information, and we all have them. I have a binder of those, and we referred to them. And then leading up to this, about 34, 35 were added. We read everyone, we keep everyone. They are part of our record, they're part of our consideration. Please know again that I will take a break. I may have to after I give you this list, but I won't. And we may, underline may, take a lunch break. We often don't do that because the board says just keep going. So I will call on everyone who's got a card, and I understand some of you gave it to us in the order you want, so we'll do the best we can on that. After public comment, back to the board members who have an opportunity for follow-up questions. And then going forward for other meetings, we expect the board at some meeting to be asked to certify the subsequent environmental impact report. We don't have a date for that meeting. We don't have a date for that meeting. For your information, it will be a regular board meeting of the board, and we do have a regular board meeting of the board that's scheduled for June 27th, but that item of expecting to certify the document is not on the June 27th agenda. That we know. We just don't have a date for the others. So it'll be a future meeting. So now to our agenda. For the three of you with that. This item is a presentation briefing to the board on the supplemental environmental impact statement, subsequent environmental impact report for the American River Common Features 2016 Flood Risk Management Project. I'm going to ask Jamie Silva of the Board Staff Environmental Services and Other Words Department to be the person who opens this up and then calls on our presenters. You're pretty much now managing this presentation, Mr. Silva. So you're on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, President Dolan, Vice President Lyons, members of the board. My name is Jamie Silva, board staff, and I'm here to introduce item 5A. So as you heard, it is an informational briefing on the American River Common Features 2016 Flood Risk Management Project, final supplemental environmental impact statement, subsequent environmental impact report. Today we have Department of Water Resources, who are our state partners. From the Flood Project branch, we have Haral Doshi and Josh Brown with us, and they will be giving us the presentation.
Thank you, Jamie. Good morning, President Dolan, Vice President Lyons. I hope my voice is going through. Fine. And the members of the board. My name is Haral Doshi. I'm with Department of Water Resources. I work as a senior project manager at the flood project branch at the department, and I work in very close coordination with board staff on this American River Common Features 2016 project. We commonly call it ARCF 2016, we prefer to. I'm here today with my colleague Josh Brown to provide a briefing on environmental impact statement, subsequent environmental impact report prepared for ARCF 2016, and this document we also call as SEIS SEIR. It's a supplemental document. Okay. So as we have done in the past for other projects, we will provide an overview of ARCF 2016, followed by project components analyzed in the subject document, and finish it up with the CEQA work put together for the same. My colleague Josh would go over the supplemental environmental document prepared for the project and steps being taken to comply with CEQA. Before I begin my part of presentation, as President Dolan also mentioned, I might be revisiting some of the areas that we have seen in the previous presentation on May 23rd, where all different experts, field experts, presented more technical details on the project. So we had presenters from Army Corps of Engineers, Department of Water Resources, Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency, as well as other, private consultants. On this slide, what you see is all the partners who come together to work for the ARCF project. And the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are the prime design and construction. They lead the prime design and construction efforts on this project. Multiple agencies and consultants do come together to finish the project. Non-federal partners are Department of Water Resources, Central Valley Flood Protection Board, Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency, who support the project by providing cost share payments, working kind support, lands, easements, right-of-ways, relocation, and disposal. We also call it LERDs. So why is ARCF 2016 needed? On this slide, what you see on the right is showing the heat map that shows different parts of Sacramento that would have different depth of flood level if the levees around the Sacramento do not perform. The orange and the red area shows the height, the depth could be anywhere over 13 feet, and the blue areas are showing the depth could be anywhere 0 to 13 feet. The study and report supporting ARCF 2016 project indicates there is a significant life loss potential and high economic impacts without the needed upgrades of the levee systems for the erosion protection. A general reevaluation report estimates approximately 500,000 people, 125,000 structures, and $62 billion are at risk. Congress does realize this risk and authorized ARCF 2016 project in 2016, appropriating $1.8 billion for immediate flood control improvements along with American and Sacramento rivers. So what is the flood risk? How did we get to ARCF 2016? Let's take a quick look at the history. 1850s, after the gold rush, a wave of settlement throughout the valley was observed, meaning more human encroachment closer to the riverbanks. Regular flooding, which was a part of shaping the valley before, then became devastating to towns and farmlands. In 1850, Sacramento was flooded for over a mile beyond the banks of Sacramento River, and city voted to build 3 feet high levee surround the town. which repeatedly failed in the high water events of 52 and 53. So these events reinforced the need to build levees further higher and higher. Did it help? 1856 flood. Comes the 1856 flood event, and the conclusion was derived that Sacramento River channel was not adequate to handle flood flows, and a flood bypass system was needed. The great floods of 1907 and 1909 further changed the debate. 1911, the state enacted State Flood Control Act, a plan to divert flood waters through multiple weirs and bypass during the storms. That resulted building of Fremont Weir and Milton Weir. 1916, still there. 5 years later, Sacramento Weir and bypass were completed by City of Sacramento to divert flood flows from the Sacramento and American rivers into the Yolo bypass. Sacramento bypass is a 2-mile-long passage with 48 manual gates that connects into Yolo bypass and can divert up to 112,000 CFS during a storm event. Yolo bypass conveys 80% of the flood flows during the storm event from major rivers like Sacramento, American Feather. During the major flood event, flows from American River Channel often exceeds the capacity of Sacramento River downstream, and flood waters would begin to flow upstream from the mouth of American River entering into the Sacramento Weir and bypass. That kind of causes a backflow from the confluence point. 1917, Congress enacted Flood Control Act that included funding for the Sacramento Flood Control Project. 1956, Folsom Dam was created to release the flow of 115,000 CFS. It was designed to provide a standard project flood SPF level of protection. An SPF is not assigned a frequency, but it was about the same size of a 500-year flood event. Folsom Dam saved Sacramento from December 1955 flood event, even though it was not fully completed. Approximately $4.7 billion of flood damage was saved. 1950s and 1955 flood events. Even then, 1950s and 1955 flood events concluded that the Folsom Dam has been constructed for the size. It wasn't large enough to handle the SPF. 1986, Sacramento experienced a record flood of in American River due to this warm temperature, producing 10 inches of rainfall in 11 days plus a large snow melt. Folsom Dam experienced 200,000 CFS of inflow. Coffer Dam broke near Auburn, causing Folsom Lake to reach 2 inches of a spill over the dam, dumping 100,000 acre-feet of water, resulting in an emergency release from the Folsom Dam of about 134,000 CFS, much higher than what it was designed for, its normal objective of 115,000 CFS. This high discharge stressed American River levees and nearly resulted in a failure upstream of the I-80 business bridge. 1986 flood continues by Howe Avenue between Northrop Avenue and Sierra Boulevard. 160 homes got flooded, anywhere from 6 inches to 4 feet depth. Arden Creek overtopped near American River College, after which Congress directed the United States Army Corps of Engineers to investigate further means to reduce flood risk to the city of Sacramento. Congress did recognize the levee improvements was the common feature of all the candidate plans in the report, and that there was a federal interest in participating in these common features. Now, why is the ability to release 160,000 CFS from Folsom Dam is important? Our level of protection has historically been overestimated. Climate change is expected to cause an increase in the size of extreme flood events and hence lowering our LOP even more with the time. Achieving a 200-year state regulatory standard while an important milestone, is not a stopping place for the protection of the people of Sacramento from flooding. And hence, ARCF 2016 was modified through WRDA 99 to include additional levee improvements to safely convey emergency release of 160,000 CFS from Folsom Dam before the peak. That will significantly reduce the chance of a more catastrophic release later in the same event. That's the difference we can make. This will enable us to appropriately manage the flood flow, balancing the levee and the dam safety in the same system at the same storm, especially. Oopsie. I think I did twice. Got it. Okay. So on this slide, what we see is all the major authorizations and achievements that happened over time for ARC, for the Sacramento Valley. 1974, WRDA gave us Sacramento Riverbank Protection Project, through which appropriately 2.5 miles of levee improvements on the lower American River were achieved between 1999 and 2011. In 1996, again, WRDA 96 authorized major construction components of ARCF project, which included construction of 22 miles of cement bentonite cutoff walls to prevent seepage along American River, and also 12 miles of levee strengthening and levee raising with Sacramento River levee closer to Natoma Basin. 99, WRDA 99, as I mentioned before, it included additional levee improvements to safely convey higher flow, which is 160 CFS from Folsom Dam. In 2015, a general re-evaluation report, GRR is what we call it, issued a letter of intent. The authorized plan, among which levee improvements of 11 miles of erosion protection was approved and achieved. And through all these historical events, milestone levee improvements, lessons learned through these developments, technological advancements, and the reality and challenges of weather extremities, we got to the point where ARCF 2016 project was authorized in the year 2016. ARCF 2016 included the need to enhance flood risk management in the Sacramento metropolitan area. The initiative aimed to protect approximately 530,000 residents, mentioned before, 125,000 structures from significant flood threat posed by American and Sacramento rivers. This authorization authorized levee improvements like 13 miles of cutoff wall, out of which 12.6 miles have been already completed, 5 miles of levee stabilization, out of which 0.5 miles have been completed, 5 miles of levee raises, out of which 0.25 miles of levee raises have been completed, 21 miles of bank improvements for erosion, out of which 9 miles have been constructed completed till date. Sacramento Weir and bypass widening and environmental mitigation. Sacramento Weir and bypass widening is set to finish in 2028. The map on your screen is showing all the American River Common Features 2016 project that it includes. The red highlight is showing all the improvements along with Sacramento River. Green is showing Lower American River improvements. The purple highlights are showing Sacramento Weir and bypass. The blue highlight is showing all the northern area streams, and the pink is showing where the mitigation sites are. So that's all the features that are developed under RCF. And this map is showing the contracts being evaluated under this particular documented subject. American River Contract 3B, 4B, 4A, Sacramento River 3, Magpie Creek, American River Mitigation Site, Eurotia, commonly we call it, Sacramento River Mitigation Site, Grand Island, and piezometer network. This slide is showing the features on American River contracts. All the contracts actually it is showing C1, C2, C3A, C3B, C4A, C4B. Now focusing on particular projects, I'm just going to go in brief. American River Contract C3B and C3B North and South. On this map, what you see is American River Contract 3B in particular that is divided in North and South banks development. On north, site 3-1 is approximately 1.1 miles of erosion protection located on the north bank between Howe and Watt Avenue. Site 4-2 is shown in yellow. It is 0.7 miles of erosion protection located north bank upstream of Watt Avenue near Estate Drive river access. On south bank, it is site 4-1, shown in the blue, is 1.5 miles of erosion protection located on the left bank of the American River upstream of Watt Avenue. So since each site designs and rationales was presented in the last presentation, I'll not go in much detail there, but this slide is kind of showing typical bank protection features that are used on this project. The features like launchable tow rock protection that you can see in the orange. It is closer to the water. It also provides support to the planting bench along with the long-term scouring protection. Soil-filled rock slope protection, tiebacks made up of rock revetment that stops erosion further spreading at the bank edge, launchable rock trench at the bank that is like a buried revetment that launches during a big storm event, further preventing erosion of the soil underneath, and rock revetment beneath which is being placed on the slope of the levee that strengthen the soil. Depending on the location, velocity of the flow, the type of erosive material that we are handling on the levee, distance from river to the levee prism, vegetation present in the wedge-free zone, the rock revetment could be placed either at the toe, either at the bank, closer to the toe, or closer to the levee prism, or brought up on the levee slope. American River Erosion Contract 4B. Now, this contract is a total of 0.6 miles of erosion protection work, is planned to be done on the right bank of the Lower American River, downstream of Watt Avenue Bridge, and left bank of American River near Larchmont Park. The contract is focusing on preserving trees on or near the levee embankment, which have been identified as an immediate threat to the levee due to either lone tree scouring. You can see in the inset how the tree and the soil around the tree, roots are exposed. That this contract is still in its conceptual level, and the supplemental environmental document will be prepared prior to the construction. Trees identified at risk will either be protected in place with erosion protection measures or be removed if the erosion risk cannot be remediated. American River Erosion Contract 4A. This contract is located on the right bank of American River downstream near River Mile 2 under State Route 160 Bridge and the Union Pacific Railroad Bridge. 100 feet of a deflection berm is going to be constructed. Features to be included at this project site will approximately protect 350 feet of the 11 miles authorized for the erosion protection along with American River. Purpose of this berm is to reduce the flow velocity during high water event, which eventually lower the erosion closer to the levee embankment, and also likely to reduce the bridge pier scouring. The bike trail is going to be rerouted and realigned. Sacramento River Erosion Contract 3. This project is located approximately 7 miles downstream from the confluence of American River and Sacramento River. It is a part of Sacramento River that experiences tidal forces. A total of 2.8 miles of levee protection is planned along with Sacramento River East Levee in the Sacramento's Pocket neighborhood. Types of improvements planned for these levee segments are tiebacks, planting benches, launchable rock tows. This picture is taken actually from a previous contract that we finished on Sacramento River Contract 2, where you can see the slope was stabilized using the planting benches. There is some woody material at the bank closer to the water. It's just a typical site during construction. Magpie Creek Project. Magpie Creek Project is located north of Interstate I-80 and is bisected by Raleigh Boulevard. It is approximately 8,600 feet long within Sacramento County between North Island and Rio Linda community. Magpie Creek Diversion Channel moves water from McLennan Business Park to Robla Creek and then west into the Natoma's east main drainage canal. We also call it NIMDEC. It terminates into the American River, making it a part of American River North Basin, one of the sub-basin of American River watershed. And the American River watershed is a part of overall Sacramento Basin, and Lower American River feeds into Sacramento River in Sacramento. ARCF GRR, which is a general re-evaluation report, finally FEIS and EIR identified substantial hydraulic impacts of this creek for the flood risk management improvements. Currently, the project is in its design phase, refinement phase, and for consideration of levee extension, widening, realignment of the portion of diversion channel, culverts beneath the Sacramento North Bike Trail, flowage, and the flowage easement to allow the water retention on an approximately 800-acre upstream of Raleigh Boulevard. This image is showing the mitigation site, American River mitigation site, Eurodia. And it is located on American River just upstream of the confluence point, adjacent to Discovery Park. The site is on water side of the federal levee, approximately 120-acre size, is subjected to tidal influence. It was historically operated as a sand and gravel mine. The plan is to retain a portion of the existing man-made pond. Alternatives were considered to reduce impacts related to air quality, greenhouse gas emission, transportation by reducing material hauling, to maintain the existing visual character of the area, reduce impacts related to the use of man-made pond by migratory birds, particularly diving ducks on this site. Sacramento River mitigation site, this is another mitigation site, Grand Island. Currently an open space habitat that is occasionally used as a dredge material disposal site. The site is located at the confluence of Sacramento River, Steamboat Slough, and Cashflow by Rio Vista. The total size of this mitigation site is 200 acres. And it contains decommissioned landfill and is bisected north and south by federal levee. Piezometer network. The piezometer network would be approximately 100 piezometers, might be installed throughout project footprint along with American and Sacramento levees, defined by ARCF GRR again, finally EIS EIR. And they are used to evaluate, they are used for evaluation of the long-term performance of flood control features. Piezometer measures underground water pressure as well as monitors groundwater levels and flow patterns. This is still in a very primitive phase and study phase for the evaluation of pros and cons. Now with this, I conclude my part of presentation. My colleague Josh would continue and present the environmental document prepared for this project. Josh.
Thank you. Good morning, Board President Dolan and members of the board. I'm Josh Brown. I'm a senior environmental scientist supervisor at the California Department of Water Resources Flood Projects Branch. I will be providing an overview of the American River Common Features 2016 Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement and subsequent Environmental Impact Report. This SEIS-SEIR is a joint CEQA-NEPA document. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is the federal lead agency and the federal project sponsor under NEPA. And the Flood Board is the lead agency under CEQA. The Department of Water Resources, the Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency, are the responsible agencies for the project in this SEIS-SEIR document. Staff from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Sacramento District, the Department of Water Resources Flood Projects Branch, the Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency, and the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, with key support from GEI Consulting, together in a monumental team effort, have worked very hard and with careful consideration to public safety and the environment to develop the ARCF program in this ARCF 2016 SEIS-SEIR document. Also, key support and collaboration has occurred to inform the ARCF project design within the Technical and Resource Advisory Committee, the TRAC, and the Bank Protection Working Group to help advise, plan, and design these bank protection features. The TRAC and the Bank Protection Working Group are composed of a wide variety of experts and representatives from partner resource agencies, the flood management community, local agencies, non-government organizations, advocacy groups, and the public. In 2016, a final environmental impact statement and environmental impact report was completed for the American River Common Features General Reevaluation Report. The GRR Final EIS-EIR evaluated a suite of flood risk reduction projects on the Sacramento and American Rivers in a programmatic level. It established that additional project-level design and impact analysis was necessary before the projects were advanced to construction. The 2016 GRR Final EIS-EIR, along with the CEQA findings, the CEQA Statement of Overriding Considerations, and the Mitigation, Monitoring, and Reporting Program were certified and adopted by the board on April 22nd, 2016 via Resolution 2016-04. Many of the flood risk reduction components described in that document have since been completed or are in progress now that are covered by separate individual CEQA NEPA documents that were also approved by the board. This ARCF 2016 SEIS-SEIR document also supplements the GRR Final EIS-EIR. Projects from the GRR that have been completed or are currently in progress that are covered by separate individual CEQA NEPA documents include American River Erosion Contracts 1, 2, and 3A, Sacramento River Erosion Contracts 1, 2, and 4, Sacramento River East Levee Seepage and Stability Contracts 1 through 4, and the Sacramento Weir and Bypass Widening Project. As my colleague Harold mentioned, the project components analyzed in this SEIS-SER include American River Erosion Contracts 3B, 4A, and 4B, Sacramento River Erosion Contract 3, American River Mitigation Site, the Sacramento River Mitigation Site, the Magpie Creek Project, and the Piezometer Network. The Sacramento River Mitigation Site, the American River Mitigation Site, and the Magpie Creek Project are described in this SEIS-SER at a programmatic level of analysis and will require additional CEQA analysis prior to construction. The federally issued biological opinions for the ARCF project are not CEQA specific, but they do provide important context and show how our resource agency partners have been included and formally consulted with throughout the American River Common Features project development process. USACE began formal consultation for the project with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Service during the development of the ARCF GRR in 2015. In the fall of 2015, National Marine Fisheries Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service issued the initial biological opinions for the project described in the GRR. In 2020, USACE, in coordination with the non-federal sponsors, requested reinitiation of consultation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Service due to changes related to mitigation and project design modifications. In April of 2021, 2 new biological opinions were issued for the ARCF 2016 project. In 2023, USACE, in coordination with the non-federal sponsors, again requested reinitiation of consultation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Service to cover American River Common Features 2016 project schedule changes and request coverage for two large construction mitigation sites, those being on the American River and the Sacramento River. The consultation was completed just this past spring, 2025, with 2 new biological opinions issued for the suite of contracts that are covered in this SEIS-SEIR document. The biological opinions define the temporal impacts of the project and the compensatory mitigation elements as required under the Endangered Species Act for the approved American River Common Features 2016 project. The American River Common Features project development team has engaged in public outreach and involvement. The SEIS-SEIR Notice of Availability was posted in the Sacramento Bee newspaper prior to public circulation. The draft SEIS-SEIR was posted on sacleveeupgrades.com website for public access and review. Furthermore, postcards containing key project information were mailed to more than 15,000 property owners within the American and Sacramento River corridors. A hard copy was provided at Sacramento Central Library, and additional hard copies were made available to the public by request. The draft document was circulated publicly December 22nd, 2023 through February 23rd, 2024, which included a more than 2-week review period extension. 3 virtual public meetings were held, one on January 10th, one on January 16th, and one on April 8th, 2024. Upon the review period completion, 964 comments were received from individual members of the public. The majority of public comments came as form letters that were sourced from an online website template. About 520 of those 964 comment letters were template form letters and were nearly identical and repeating in nature. Comment letters were also received from 3 federal agencies, 2 state agencies, 5 local agencies, and 7 interest groups. And here to the right, I have the federal agencies, state and local agencies, and interest groups who submitted comments listed here. Most of the comments were focused on similar topics or areas of interest. The primary topics included tree and vegetation removal, impacts to endangered species and their habitats, impacts to recreational access and quality, impacts to local air quality, compliance with the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, doubting the regional flood risk and necessity of the project, and requests for natural bank protection in place of the project. To respond to the high volume of similarly themed comments, 15 master responses were prepared to address common topics. Individual responses were developed to address more specific or technical comments. Comments have been reviewed and were responded to using either a master response, an individual response, or both. Comments and responses are organized in Appendix I of the SEIS SER and are publicly accessible at saclevyupgrades.com. Now I will walk you through the master response letter topics so you can see the topics that were covered within the master responses. Master Response 1 addressed comments related to extending the public comment period and hosting an in-person meeting. Master Response 2 addressed scope and approach of improvements in Contract 3B. Master Response 3 addressed tree removal and bioengineering in Contract 3B and 4A. Master Response 4 addressed comments related to Contract 3B impacts to recreation on the Lower American River. Master Response 5 addressed comments related to on- and off-site mitigation requirements, habitat impacts, and operations and maintenance. Master Response 6 addressed comments related to public health and safety impacts from construction. Master Response 7 addressed comments related to public outreach and requests for documentation. Master Response 8 addressed comments related to Wild and Scenic Rivers Act compliance. Master Response 9 addressed comments related to American River Mitigation Site. Master Response 10 addressed comments related to the purpose and goals of the Lower American River Erosion Contract 4B. Master Response 11 addressed comments related to levee safety and public access. Master Response 12 addressed comments related to property value impacts. Master Response 13 addressed comments related to green space and physical and mental health. Master Response 14 addressed comments related to environmental justice. And Master Response 15 addressed comments related to Lower American River Contract 3B riparian forest. Upon completion of the public review period, the ARCF project development team completed comment responses and refinements to the existing SEIS SER information to make the document as clear as possible. The following refinements were provided within the document. Supporting project description details and maps added to better illustrate the existing project design, construction footprints, and tree preservation and removal areas. providing engineering Appendix G to summarize existing information on the engineering investigations, analysis, and design development efforts. Clarification on habitat and tree surveys that inform the impact analysis for vegetation and wildlife. Clarifying discussion and documentation of habitat changes and effects on special status wildlife and riparian habitat. Supporting information and discussion of recreation on the American River. An air quality health risk assessment was conducted for Contract 3B, which confirmed the draft SEIS-SAR existing impact determination that construction would not exceed health risk thresholds for sensitive receptors, and clarifying information provided on habitat mitigation requirements and success criteria. Many of the public comments focused on Contract 3B design, so I'll provide a summary of the evolution of Contract 3B design to reduce the impacts. The original 2016 GRR EIS-EAR presented alternatives that included up to 11 miles of either exposed rock on levee bank protection or launchable rock trench. Between 2016 and 2023, project design refinements were developed with the primary goal of reducing riparian habitat impacts along the American River. American River erosion contracts 1 and 2, which are completed, included refined slope changes that lower stages upstream, reducing the size and extent of improvements required by Contract 3B. Designs for Contract 3B were further refined based on feedback from the TRAC and resource agencies in 2021, greatly reducing habitat impacts compared to the previous alternative, and include buried, launchable tow, and launchable trench designs to minimize exposed rock revetment and allow additional on-site replanting to occur. Under the current proposed project, the refinements reduced the required improvements to about 6 miles total bank protection. Impacts to the project that were not mitigated to less than significant are considered significant and unavoidable. Details of the significant and unavoidable impacts, along with the mitigation measures for each contract, are available in Table ES-1, Summary Effects of Mitigation Measures, within the document. The table that prevents the impacts and mitigation measures is too large and complex to include in this PowerPoint, so I'll provide a brief summary of the impacts from each contract. Transportation and circulation temporary impacts will occur only during construction at Magpie Creek, American River Erosion Contracts 3B, 4A, 4B, and American River Mitigation Site. Recreational, temporary, and short-term impacts will occur only during construction at Magpie Creek, American River Erosion Contract 3B, 4A, 4B, and the American River Mitigation Site. Aesthetics and visual resources short-term impacts will occur during construction and until vegetation reestablishes at American River Erosion Contract 3B, 4B, and American River Mitigation Site and the Sacramento River Mitigation Site. Short and long-term impacts to aesthetics and visual resources from changed conditions will occur at Sacramento River Erosion Contract 3. Hydraulics and hydrology potential short and long-term impacts from flood stage increases at Magpie Creek. Water quality short-term impacts will occur during construction and until vegetation reestablishes at American River Erosion Contract 3B and 4B, Sacramento River Erosion Contract 3, Magpie Creek, American River Mitigation Site, and Sacramento River Mitigation Site. Air quality temporary impacts will occur during construction at all contracts except the piezometer network. Noise and vibration temporary impacts will occur during construction at Magpie Creek, American River Erosion Contract 3B, 4A, 4B, Sacramento River Erosion Contract 3, and American River Mitigation Site. Vegetation and wildlife short-term impacts will occur during construction and until vegetation reestablishes at Magpie Creek, American River Erosion Contracts 3B, 4A, 4B, Sacramento River Erosion Contract 3, and American River Mitigation Site. And cultural resource impacts on buried resources from grading and ground disturbance during construction will occur at the American River Mitigation Site. As specified in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Service biological opinions issued for the American River Common Features Project, compensatory habitat mitigation measures will include on-site habitat replanting composed of native grasses, shrubs, and trees, incorporation of planting benches composed of native grasses, shrubs, trees, and in-stream woody material, 2 large-scale off-site compensatory habitat mitigation sites, including 120 acres at the American River Mitigation Site and 200 acres at Grand Island on the Sacramento River, as well as mitigation bank credit purchases. Special status species habitat mitigation measures will address habitat impacts to salmonids, green sturgeon, delta smelt, valley elderberry, longhorn beetle, and yellow-billed cuckoo. Riparian habitat impacts, including tree removal, are offset at a 2-to-1 ratio, with 2 acres restored or enhanced for every 1 acre impacted. All project mitigation sites include a success criteria and a long-term monitoring and reporting program to be carried out in coordination with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Service to ensure revegetation over time. On-site and off-site habitat mitigation designs and installation are developed in coordination with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Marine Fisheries Service. And this concludes my presentation. Today's meeting was an informational briefing. At a future board meeting, you'll be asked that you consider approval of a resolution to adopt the statement of findings, adopt the statement of overriding considerations, certify the supplemental environmental impact statement and subsequent environmental impact report, adopt the mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program, and approve the project. Thank you.
Thank you, presenters. Nice job, Mr. Silva. Nice and brief. We'll see. Ms. Doshi? I think I got that right.
Yes.
Mr. Brown. I want to now ask board members if they have any initial comments, questions, input. I'll start here. Board Member Andrews?
No comments or
Not yet.
questions?
Board Member Valines? You're allowed a quick or long question, sir.
Mr. Brown, just at the the very end, you on the acreage and on the trees, it's a 2-to-1 replacement. So anything that gets cut down, we do 2 trees. I'm not trying to satisfy the crowd because I know there's a different concern on some specific trees too. But is that accurate, basically?
Yeah, that is correct. That is a requirement by under our biological opinions to provide a 2-to-1 ratio for those particular habitat types and species types.
Okay. Member Grego? Not at this time. Member Countryman?
Of course.
Was that a of course?
Yes.
That's why I put you there at the end.
So, Mr. Brown, if I understood the presentation, the designers between 2016 and 2023 or 2021 made a significant effort to reduce the impact to the trees in the 3B and 4 area. And as a result of that, the scope of the project in that area was reduced. Is that right?
That is correct. It is drastically reduced. I don't know the exact acreage of the reduction off the top of, offhand. I'm sure some of my Army Corps colleagues could probably answer that, but it was drastically reduced and changed. You know, traditionally it was surface exposed revetment on levees that were done for bank protection. You know, this is arguably state of the art flood protection. You know, with buried rock that has soil on top of it that allows planting to go over top of that. So, this is state-of-the-art flood protection techniques that are being used, and the footprint has been drastically reduced. I think it went from 11 miles on 3B north and south down to about 6 miles, so close to half of what it was originally. And so I would say that's substantial.
Sounds substantial. At our previous informational briefing, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I believe there's something like 1,500 trees in the affected area, and 100 of them will be removed and then mitigated for under this project. Is that about the right understanding?
I would hesitate to go on record and say the exact amount of trees. I think it's the Army Corps of Engineers would be able to answer that more precisely. So I could get back to you and answer that more directly.
That's what I recall the Corps testifying to at our previous workshop. It was about 10% of the trees were affected.
It looks like we have someone from the Army Corps that would say that. It also is in the transcript of the prior meeting.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hans Kroda with Corps. So in contract 3B, there's well over 2,500 trees in the area to be affected, and about 675 to 715 are in the document. Sorry, as being in the removal category. Yeah.
So my numbers were wrong then?
Yeah, they're a little lower than what's in the document, but yes, for contract 3B. Yeah.
So it's 2,500 down to 600, was it?
Yeah, 685.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. Mr. Countryman, do you have more?
So those 600 trees will be mitigated at a 2-to-1
Correct.
ratio?
Correct.
Thank you. That's all.
Mr. Countryman, do you have more?
Yeah, I'm through.
Oh, okay. I think I missed that. Is Board Member Johnson? Of course, I've lost my technical help here.
I'm here. I don't have any questions at this time. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Brian. You were able to hold your hand up and unmute yourself. I lost Jonah, so I wasn't sure what to do there. So thank you. I'm going to take a short break now, and then we'll get organized, get our hair, and we'll start with public comment. So I'm going to say 5 minutes.
Thank you.
We'll reconvene now. I'll just watch to see how everyone gets her chair again. Do you have Member Johnson back live? Okay. How many do we have? 25. Okay. Okay, I can still say it's good morning still. So thank you for being there. I think we have these organized in the way people made requests, but if we didn't, you'll be called when you're called. We have 25 speaker cards, so we will go to that. I will say the name to bring you forward. I'm actually going to say 3 names, so I want the first name to be at the podium and the other 2 to be right behind so that we can just do this smoothly, if you don't mind. So I'm going to call first Liz Bellis, and if I mispronounce your names, you will correct it, because I will want you to say your names. And then Margaret Munger will follow her, and then Bill Bratton will follow Margaret. Ms. Belza, did I say it right? Bellis, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. My name is Liz Bellis. I am the Director of Sacramento County Department of Regional Parks. I have submitted a letter for the record, and I'd like to summarize the main points of this letter for you today. We appreciate the Corps of Engineers, the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, Department of Water Resources, and Safeco's leadership over the past 3 decades in the effort to provide the people of Sacramento with an acceptable level of protection from catastrophic flooding under the Common Features Project. Much of this effort has been within the American River Parkway, and we are honored to have been a member of the TRAC and a partner in ensuring that these public safety accomplishments complement the Parkway's unique recreation and environmental values. It is in this spirit of partnership that I offer the following comments on the recently issued Common Features Final SEIS-SEIR. We appreciate the document's detailed responses to the comments we submitted on the draft environmental document, and as it relates to erosion work, the issues we raised with our comment letter have been addressed. We look forward to the implementation of these critical public safety improvements. We also appreciate the additional information provided on the use of the Uridia property in the Parkway, which has been acquired by Safeco to provide habitat mitigation for the project impacts. It has been a goal of the American River Parkway Plan for nearly 2 decades to bring this site into the publicly owned parkway and to implement a large-scale habitat restoration and enhancement program. Under the currently proposed habitat mitigation project, the perennial open water lacustrine pond habitat at the site would be filled and converted to an intermittently flooded area to create shaded riparian habitat, and the grassland would be converted to scrub habitat for velb habitat. This would involve one of the most ambitious landscape alterations ever undertaken in the parkway. Needless to say, a very careful consideration of the resulting exchange of aquatic resource values is essential. The final environmental document provides some of the necessary information to consider the potential environmental impacts of the proposed mitigation, and we are encouraged to see that this board will conduct additional environmental review. As the document acknowledges, this action was analyzed at a programmatic level, and additional review will be required before the mitigation project can be implemented. We anticipate the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors will need to consider the approval of an area plan map amendment to the Parkway Plan prior to implementation of a mitigation project at the Uridia site. As such, they will need to consider your board's forthcoming project level analysis of the proposed mitigation project to satisfy CEQA. To support the Board of Supervisors' action, a more robust and complete alternatives analysis of the Uridia Restoration Enhancement Program is needed. The final environmental document includes a partial alternative which analyzes the preservation of a 22-acre portion of the existing open water pond at the Uridia site without identifying how the remainder of the mitigation would be addressed. This partial alternative would reduce the on-site acreage available for creating shaded riverine habitat and velb habitat, but these losses could be made up at the Arden Pond site and at other sites within the parkway appropriate for these habitat types. I do have more testimony to give. I understand I'm over time. May I indulge?
How much more do you have? You're over by 30 seconds.
I've got about a minute.
30 seconds.
Okay. Since the Arden Pond site has been subject to extensive environmental review and Fish and Wildlife Coordination in connection with Common Features Contract 2, a scaled-down version of the previous design would likely be carried forward without much delay. Other potential velb mitigation sites have also been identified, including an area designated as critical habitat by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, where little to no habitat for velb exists. These options are not considered in detail in the final environmental document. The one other thing that I want to add, since I want to truncate my time, is that prior to the Board of Supervisors' action to consider amending the area plan map amendment, we do have an early notification process, which is required under the county's Good Neighbor policy and in accordance to our Parkway Plan, which will allow for public input during the project design prior to CEQA approval. This early notification process could also help inform project-level alternatives analysis. Thank you for your time and indulgence.
Thank you. Margaret Munger, and then Bill Bratton, following Margaret, and then Heidi McLean, following Mr. Bratton. Good morning.
Good morning. I am a native Sacramentan. I lived on Twin Falls Drive all my life till I got married. It's
And
right
would you
along
give
the
your
levee.
name again?
Margaret Munger.
Thank you.
Yes. Right across the street from our house was the levee. We lived there. My parents had that home since the 60s. I was there, lived there during the big flood in '86. I understand that levees are important, but I also have to say that the way that things look now over by Sac State is just horrible. It is like a death to me. I spend a lot of time with my family at the river. It's a place for peace. It's a place for just like a break from the city. And now it looks like it's going to be like just a canal or something. It's hideous. So my request would be that you take the time to find another way besides just getting rid of all the vegetation between the levees and making it gone. That's what I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. We hear you. Mr. Bratton, then Heidi McLean, then Stephanie Christensen.
Good morning, President Dolan and members of the board. My name is Bill Bratton, and I'm a California registered civil engineer with 25 years experience as a water resource control engineer. I've sent several letters to you over the past few months that provide information on Army Corps' failure to include bioengineering as an alternative in the draft SEIR, despite having promised 17 residents in writing they would do so, and having been told they had to do so by US EPA in accordance with CEQA and NEPA. We have now heard approximately 12 presentations in total from the project proponents, with the board asking questions after each of them. Yet some very important questions have not been asked. Although there are many such questions, such as whether CEQA requirements have reasonably been met, which they have not, I would like you to ask Army Corps to explain the following related significant problems with the design process for Contract 3B. First, Army Corps once again promised 17 residents in writing that bioengineering would be considered for Contract 3B, yet the word bioengineering does not appear anywhere in the draft SEIR, even though it was retained as a viable alternative in the 2008 feasibility study. Even if bioengineering was eliminated, the draft SEIR should have said why. Including a document finding bioengineering infeasible now is not appropriate when it was found feasible in the 2008 feasibility study. The board should ask Army Corps to explain this. And secondly, the 35% design that began in 2020 appears to have just copied the highly destructive designs from contracts 1 and 2 onto all segments determined to need bank protection, instead of designing the project to protect as many trees as possible using all bank protection alternative methods found feasible in the feasibility study. This 35% design even included extensive tree removal for several segments in the lowest risk category. The board should ask Army Corps to explain why the design process proceeded in this manner, because it set up a false starting point that was much too destructive and from which the project never recovered. As CEQA lead agency, you and your staff should be asking why Contract 3B design proceeded in this manner contrary to what was planned and promised. It is important to understand what early missteps in the design process led us to what is still a much more destructive project than is necessary. The recommendations from the track and the expert opinion elicitation were ignored during the 35% design, including bioengineering recommendations. I ask that the board require that these designs be reevaluated to fairly consider all bank protection alternatives that were found viable in the 2008 feasibility study before approving Contract 3B. The public, the wildlife, the trees, and the wild at scenic river status should not suffer just because of mistakes made in the early parts of the design process from which the project never recovered. Thank you.
I think it's 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So that's all right. We got two there as well.
Good morning. My name's Heidi McLean. I'm a resident of Sacramento. And I completely agree with the previous speaker. He's much better, he's much more adequate at expressing my concerns than I am. But I'm going to add to that. I think that if you want 100% protection in Sacramento, you need to have a boat, period. Because nothing is 100%. It's a river. Rivers, water goes where it wants to go. I feel like this was a whitewash of Contract 3B. 2 1-inch seedlings do not equal 1 30-inch tree. Give me a break. That's math. The 30-inch diameter tree provides enormous habitat for a variety of species. We're not just talking things that are protected by the Endangered Species Act. Those are not the only residents of this area. And I don't understand why they are not part of this whole discussion, except that you are obligated to follow the law, and the law says you have to do X, Y, and Z. But there's more to this area than that. This exclusive focus on endangered species completely ignores the other critters, the insects, the mammals, the birds that inhabit this area. I don't understand why they're not taken into consideration along with all the others. In the previous comment, I asked, what is the rate of success of these off-site mitigation efforts? I remember what happened with the vernal pools that were eliminated up Highway 50 and how that mitigation has never succeeded in that development. So that's something that I think you also should be asking. What is the success rate? And when you say that it will be monitored, who does the monitoring? Also, you have not defined the short-term impact. How long is the short-term impact? Is it 1 year? Is it 10 years? Is it 50 years? What is the short-term impact? I teach ballet. I am not an expert in this. But in high school, I learned about ecosystems. And I don't see the relationship between Contract 3B and the ecosystem that the American River supports. And I teach at Sac State, and the devastation that a previous person described is horrific. It hurts me, even though I don't go down to that area. Just looking at it is an abomination. And for you to say that, maybe in 1 year, I heard the Army Corps of Engineers and all of what they said. I'm not satisfied with the response about how tall the grass is this year. I want more than that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Following Stephanie Christensen will be Marnie Ellison. I'm missing a name there, Ms. Ellison. And then, I don't know if it's Patty or Paul. Oh, it's got to be Brown Todd, last name.
Stephanie Christensen. I live a block off the American River. And do I have to give my address? Or
No.
you? Okay.
Your name, please. We have your
Okay.
name.
Yeah, thank you. I moved here when I was a small child, and there were no freeways. And so there's been many mistakes since then by the county and the state. We should have had another overpass between 50 and 80. Can't fix that now. But we utilize the American River. We've done it for 50 years. We brought our children, we brought our grandchildren to appreciate the earth, the trees. We pick up other people's garbage. My husband, he goes and takes his weed whacker out there. And when we saw what happened at H Street, I appreciate what this other gal said, that it looks like a canal. And I appreciate the experts and the history lesson and all of that, but Sacramento has one of the dirtiest airs in the state. I think we're like 6th or 7th. So I appreciate every tree. And when I saw on H Street, the trees are about that tall, I'm thinking I won't live long enough to see them be 100 feet. It does look like a canal. This one area is so beautiful. And like we walked it yesterday. We ride our bikes every day. It hurts to see that there's just such disregard for, 600 or 700 trees and the brush. I don't doubt that there's areas that need support, but to see it wiped clean, like at H Street in Sac State, every time we walk there, we ride bike, it hurts. And you can't fix this. If trees take, what? There's oaks and all of that. It's just, like I said, it hurts. And certainly there should be some more thought to what can be, saving trees and all that and all of that. I'm sorry that this looks just like this is the easiest thing to do, the easiest and quickest. But like I said, it's something we've watched, and I've seen many county politicians and supervisors and make big mistakes. Alhambra Theater, to name another one. So I appreciate that there should be more thought to what's, so that it doesn't look like H Street.
Okay, thank you very much. Except for your comment about county supervisors. We were not all bad. Following Ms. Ellison will be Brown Todd. Patty? Okay, sorry about that. And then following Brown Todd will be Annette. Sister Marie Francis would give you all bad penmanship. Good morning.
Hi, my name is Marnie Filling Ellison. I'm a biologist and author born and raised in Sacramento. The American River is, I believe, the only state and federally designated wild and scenic river in a major metropolitan area in the country. The Wild and Scenic Rivers Act of 1968 selected valuable rivers so that they and their immediate environments would be protected for the benefit of present and future generations. I think everyone agrees that flood mitigation measures along the American River are needed, but they should be thoughtful, preserving as much of the region as possible. The lower American River supports countless species of insects, amphibians, reptiles, fishes, birds, mammals, and native plants. River edges serve as a nursery for young plants and animals which have fewer areas to live as development swallows up land. Replacing trees and plants with riprap, even with soil, will disrupt the whole ecosystem and will not provide the safe, shady habitats they require. With climate change and drought threatening us more every year, we need mature trees as a carbon sink, as well as for cooling shade and protection from evaporation with our precious water. Rocks will only make these regions hotter and increase evaporation, and they don't sequester carbon. Mature trees also help control airborne particulates. Small particle pollution can cause reduced lung development in children, asthma attacks, heart failure, and strokes. And it can cause serious health effects in older adults, children, and people with diabetes. At the February meeting, a medical doctor cited studies comparing the air quality of the 3B area to an adjacent region without trees, which had significantly higher levels of particulates in the air. She also pointed out that there's a Title I school in the 3B area that uses that stretch of river for recreation and school projects. Homeowners along the American River will see their home values decrease, temperatures increase, and their health and well-being decrease. Homeowners at the February and April meetings said the river was their primary reason for purchasing in the area. Some even suggested they may feel forced to move. The American River is the most heavily used recreation river in California. Cool, shady trails full of wildlife provide free recreation to families of all incomes, a respite from concrete, asphalt, and the stresses of a big city. Many studies show that time spent in nature is healthy for all of us, especially children. On a planet with so many threats to its health and habitats, we already possess a gem of a parkway, unique in the country. Once an environment is destroyed, it cannot be easily replaced. Often it can't be replaced at all. Until vegetation reestablishes is decades for mature trees. Please look for a better solution to flood mitigation that takes the overall health of the river and Sacramento residents into consideration. Identify the spots where mitigation is necessary and where the parkway can be preserved. There are lots of people at the meetings I've attended with the expertise and experience to help come up with something better for all of our sakes, for us, our children, and for the planet. Thank you very much.
Turn that on. After Annette will be Robert Horowitz, and then Ann Olson. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Patty Brown Todd. No relation.
I saw that your email is Patty Jane. I could have just looked at that.
Easy peasy. I'm here because I am a resident of the area you're discussing. I live on American River Drive, Section 3B 3-1, and we're concerned. And I think it's been articulated by my colleague here and others that this is not about just this or that. It's about quality of life for Sacramentans. We all know we're living by a river. We all know flood protection's needed. What we're advocating for is we can do it better without taking out trees that I will never see grow in my lifetime, and many of my neighbors will never see grow in their lifetime. We moved there for a reason. We support the city. I'm active on several other commissions because we believe in the city. We believe government can do better, and that's what I want to advocate for. I was with State Parks. I was with the Air Resources Board. Government can do better all the time. So don't give up. Don't just go with the easy way. And I know this isn't easy. You guys did a great job mitigating from 2016 to 2023, but we can do better. I didn't know about this, to be honest. I wear the green shirt to remind myself I found out about this through the Tree Foundation. I know there were public meetings. I don't remember a postcard, I'll be honest. I applaud that you outreached, but I don't remember any of this, and neither do many of my neighbors. And a lot of them were there at the last meeting and couldn't make it to this. So again, in close, I'm gonna make it short and sweet. Quality of life, like seeing a 4-point stag from my door. That's amazing. You don't get that in other cities. Please keep that in mind.
Mr. Horowitz? Yeah, I'm hoping that when I call those, that will come right up. And then Ann Olson, then Susan Mills. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having this meeting and allowing me to speak. I've been involved with Parkway things for about over 20 years now. I'm a cyclist and a kayaker. When I first saw what was going on down by Sac State and Campus Commons, I was like, wow, that's pretty severe. But I knew it was the narrowest place on the whole parkway. So I was like, well, okay, this place is really narrow. If there's going to be a flood, that's probably where it would be. And so it was like, okay, we can put up with this. But when I heard that this was going to continue all the way upriver for miles, I was pretty shocked because, as other people said, it looks pretty awful. But okay, that was the narrowest place. So I get that, and I get the need for flood protection. And the question on my mind has always been, well, is this the best way to do it, or are there other ways to do it? I didn't know, and I was talking to people, and I talked to one person who I thought was pretty smart, and he's like, Bob, there's other ways to do flood protection. And then I was just listening to this gentleman right here who seems to be very, very knowledgeable, and he's saying there's other ways to do it. So I guess if there are other ways to do it that reduce the impact, because the impact is severe, the existing thing that we're looking at looks pretty awful, I think we ought to take that opportunity and really, really, really try to do it differently. I will say on the mitigation bank, I previously had commented on the American River Mitigation Bank. didn't seem like there was any thought for the recreational value in that area. I would like to see that considered when considering that parcel. I know they're trying to cram as much mitigation into this one place, but this is a parkway in the center of a metropolitan area with 1 million people, and recreation is a consideration for that. The other thing I wanted to just briefly mention is that at times I've tried to propose projects on the parkway, and I've talked with your staff, and they were unfailingly kind and helpful. But it appears that if you want to plant trees in the parkway, you have to do a whole lot of hydroengineering and figure out, oh, what's the impact of the trees from 40 years' time? And you ought to be doing that work and providing those maps so that people who want to propose a very, very small project that might cost $25,000 doesn't balloon to $150,000. It's too dang hard to plant trees on the parkway. Lastly, I'll close. Yesterday I was paddling on the river in the project area. I saw 2 otters, which was pretty awesome. I followed them a little bit, but we were going upriver and they were faster. But they got out. They are living in your project area. And I don't need to tell you this, but otters are adorable. So what's going to happen to them?
Following Ann Olson will be Susan Mills and then Candace Hines.
Good morning. My name is Ann Olson. I'm a retired civil engineer. You have an important decision ahead of you. As the lead agency for CEQA, you must certify the SEIR before the project can go forward. Please delay that decision with respect to Contract 3B and work with American River Trees to see if we can find ways to reduce the destruction of the riparian forest and salmon habitat. Contract 3B is not ready for prime time. It does not satisfy 2 of the 4 co-equal project objectives that are set forth in the draft SEIR. The second objective is to reduce maintenance and repair in ways that are compatible with natural processes. The third is to ensure recovery of ecological functions, native habitats, and species. The current project is not consistent with those 2 objectives. First, the planned erosion control and scour protection would cause unnecessary impacts to salmon habitat, heritage oaks, and other large trees. Although many of the trees are not native species, wildlife doesn't make such distinctions. This reach of the American River is truly wild and scenic and deserves special consideration and extra expense to protect it. Second, the Corps would allow contractor discretion in tree removal, and appropriate oversight has not been assured. Once a tree has been cut down, it's oops, sorry, but there's no recourse and the tree is gone forever. Third, there is insufficient on-site mitigation for habitat destruction. The riparian forest, would take many years to recover and would never be the same because of the extensive use of conventional revetment. The appeal is that these revetment systems are very durable, but you trade higher construction costs and long-term habitat impacts for lower maintenance and repair costs. In closing, engineers are logical, linear thinkers. Our job is to solve problems, and we tend to use tried and true methods because, well, they're tried and true. But the downside of that approach has become obvious in our lifetime, and most of us have learned that we must be creative to minimize environmental impacts. Based on how we vote, the people of this state believe it's worth additional cost. We support increasing flood protection, and we ask only for a short, determinate delay. We are led by professional scientists and engineers, and we're intimately familiar with the site. Please collaborate with us in good faith to explore modifying the design and less impactful construction techniques, as well as improving mitigation to better meet your project objectives. Thank you.
Following Susan Mills will be Candace Hines, and then John Cameron.
Good morning. My name is Annette Verreau, and I want to thank everybody here for your hard work. I appreciate everything. I actually have not been a lifelong Sacramento resident. I moved from Alaska, where I worked for 38 years, in Denali Park. And when I came here, it was very important to pick a great habitat. So I picked near Howe Avenue, near the American River Parkway and the 3B project. And I paid a premium during the high prices to be there, which is probably gone now because on the other side of Howe Avenue towards the college, everybody's seen it looks like a bomb has gone off. So I want to say the mitigation is kind of a misnomer in my mind because mitigation doesn't happen for a 200, 300-year-old tree and all the habitat that's connected to it, all the mycorrhizal that's in the soil, all those connections cannot be replaced. Look at what's happened. Twice, it looks like, along Howe to H Bridge, everything's pretty much dead. There's a little bit of greenery, but it's like a disaster, and it's been planted at least twice. And I want to say one more thing about the letters. He mentioned 970, 950 letters were written about this project and belittled form letters. But you have to think about the math of that. Every person who writes a letter represents 10, 15, or 20 people. Do the math. Thousands of people, hundreds of people don't want this project as it's written. We want flood control. I live very close. I want flood control. I just want it done with bioengineering and consideration of the habitat. There are other ways. If this was a national park, and it's a jewel, it's important as a national park, it would be done better. So I ask that 3B be done and do it right. Thank you.
Ms. Fouts, I think this got moved from the list, so thanks for coming up. Are you Susan Mills?
I am Susan
Okay, so now
Mills.
I'm going to keep these from flying off. So following Susan Mills, John Cameron, Cliff Feldheim. Good morning. Did I miss? Oh, take that back. Following Susan Mills will be Candace Hines, and then John Cameron. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, board, for being here. Thank you all the public agencies who are participating in this project. I oppose the project as it stands. I am a resident in the area. My gate opens up to Larchmont Community Park. I will be significantly impacted by this project with heavy equipment and other ins and outs of the project. I have a daughter, 14 years old. I am concerned about air quality, not just for myself and my daughter, but for all of our community. I went paddleboarding last night on the river. Like, that was one of the reasons why I moved to the area. I'm a Sacramento native, grew up in the suburbs, but to this particular area was the river. To have that access, to be able to walk from my door to the river is absolutely amazing. And to have all of those trees, huge oak trees, all the birds and the wildlife, the deer. I saw multiple beavers last night in the river, all the birds and the migration that happens, absolutely incredible. And one of the, like, to me, the biggest assets of Sacramento is to bring people in, and it really does draw people to Sacramento, the American River, and that it's wild and scenic. It's very special. A lot of people before me have spoken eloquently about the science and other technical aspects. I don't have that expertise. Mine is more, and so I thank them for the time that they put in to research and to do their due diligence. I am, again, a parent, other things going on in life, so I haven't been able to do that, but to me, this is common sense, taking out huge trees that have roots, and I think a more strategic approach. I'm 100% for public safety, 100% for flood protection, but again, as someone else said, I moved to the river, I understand that risk, and so that is a risk I'm willing to take, but I do want to mitigate risk, and to have more strategic, thoughtful, a way to do it, then really this seems like a mass destruction. Looking at the areas on Howe and near Sac State is just, it just hurts to look at, really. Like, heart, soul hurts to see there isn't much growing there, and and it really, this is a jewel of Sacramento. So I encourage you all to take another look. I do appreciate all the effort. I know I work in public, in this sector, I work for the government. I understand the lift it takes, and so I do appreciate all your time and effort. And I just implore you to take a step further. Let's be strategic. Let's be really creative. This is an opportunity to be leaders and to do something of visionary, to take it to a next step of strategic implementation of flood protection. Thank you.
Are you Candace Hines?
I am Candace
Okay, I think I have the paperwork, but we'll see. I'm getting some help up here as well. And then Mr. Cameron, if it is that, and then Mr. Feldheim. Good morning.
Hi, my name is Candace Hines. I'm an environmental scientist at the State Water Resources Control Board for about 10 years. I live next to the Parkway and am concerned about flood safety, but believe that the Corps' plans for Contract 3B are lazy and outdated. I strongly believe that alternative approaches could feasibly be utilized to accomplish flood protection while preserving much more of the wildlife corridor than currently proposed. Slides today indicated that impacts to recreation, aesthetics, wildlife, and air quality are only short-term and temporary. These are long-term impacts, unless the threshold for temporary is 100+ years, if it ever really does truly rebound. At the May 23rd meeting, a board member made a statement whom I believe had solely good intentions, but on which I would like to shed some clarifying light. The statement was, "The community wants to know that their parkway will be restored." I must emphasize that we are not asking for restoration. We're asking for preservation of our parkway. This is because the Corps' ineffective, low-diversity revegetation plan will not be restoring the parkway, and what we stand to lose is irreplaceable. At the meeting, the Corps showed photos of previous revegetated sites and described the success, but observations like it's tall and it's filling in, but neglected to speak about the critical differences between the new habitat and what was removed. Healthy, fertile topsoil was removed and replaced with quarried subsoil, which in addition to equipment trampling, leads to long-term soil compaction issues. In the case of planting benches, as in Contract 3B, the foreign soil is placed over buried riprap, causing very poor conditions for root growth. The diversity of species planted was significantly reduced from the original habitat. The revegetation species list in the Contract 3B final report is staggeringly short in comparison to its current natural diversity that supports a thriving ecosystem for centuries, probably more. I'm not requesting the Corps improve their revegetation plan because at that stage, an incredible and irreversible loss will have already been executed. I'm emphasizing the extreme need for preservation over restoration of this national natural treasure. It's claimed that these designs are the least destructive possible to achieve the desired flood protection. However, this is the opinion of this specific project team, a handful of Corps engineers. We've come across several non-Corps engineers whose evaluations of Contract 3B differ from that of this project team. What might an engineering with nature mentor, whose expertise explicitly focuses on nature-based solutions and footprint-reducing techniques, say about these design choices? I kindly ask the board to require the Corps to assign an EWN mentor to professionally evaluate and implement less destructive approaches. And I please ask you to employ professional opinions and peer reviews from multiple parties that are external to the Corps. I'm not asking the board to choose between habitat and flood safety. I'm asking you to leave no stone unturned in your efforts to ensure that this project will, without a shadow of a doubt, result in the least amount of damage possible. The Corps is not infallible. Please question and double-check their work. Thank you.
Mr. Cameron, correct?
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. And then Mr. Feldman, and then Andrea Wiley, or Willie. It's got two L's
Thank
there.
you,
Good morning.
Madam Chairperson, members of the board. Thank you, fellow citizens, voters, and taxpayers for being here. My name is John Cameron, and I used to jump out of airplanes and carry a machine gun for a living. All paratroopers, even former busted-up ones like me, feel a bond for their bands of brothers who've gone before. That's why there was a place in my heart for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, especially Colonel Peregrine in the 291st Combat Engineer Battalion. Excuse me, I'm getting a little upset here. Bear with me. They blew bridges so panzer divisions wouldn't crush my father. But to see this, fast, decisive action to stop a despicable enemy is called for, immediate action. We are not at war with the American River. We are not at war with the American River Parkway. It's a place of healing. We can all agree, can we not, that our goal is to make us safe while preserving the parkway. They are not mutually exclusive. This is not a battle. This is a partnership. You don't fight water. You make a deal with water. Well, never mind. I'm going to skip that part. The Corps has done what needs to be done to prevent seepage and overtopping. Now, the stated goal of this project is erosion control. We've been presented with a plan that even after cursory examination is grossly over-engineered. None of the alternatives that these professional scientists have been proposed have even been considered to prevent the massive destruction that is the unique jewel of the parkway. As other people have mentioned, there is nothing like this anywhere in this country. They haven't seemed to be given any consideration. And from what I've seen, and I've run projects, and any project you can chop in half, you can chop again. I'll tell you that right now. Sorry about that. All right. So let us not be in a hurry to make an irreversible decision at breakneck speed about something that happens slowly. You can't unbulldoze an oak. You can't undestroy habitat. The current plan calls for what some people call mitigation. You can't shred the priceless work of art that is the American River Parkway and mitigate it with a knockoff made of coyote brush. Look what happened in Altadena. You can't mitigate serenity and beauty with a chainsaw. I ask the Corps and the board to take the time to make a measured decision about something that cannot be undone. Thank you.
Mr. Cameron, thank you for your service. Cliff Feldheim, and then after him is Andrea Willie, and then Nancy Nistern. Sir.
Hi, thank you. Cliff Feldheim with Sacramento Audubon. Professionally, I'm a fish and wildlife biologist. I've spent the last 30 years of my career working in the Central Valley, preserving our habitats, and more specifically, I'd be considered a waterfowl scientist. The last 8 years, I've published 17 papers on California's breeding or wintering waterfowl. And my comments today, I want to focus on some of those bird impacts, specifically to the mitigation sites, the American River mitigation site, the Utica Pond. Some of our membership did surveys out there for a number of years, published a peer-reviewed paper looking at the values of that habitat for birds. And the diversity of birds out there, the number of birds out there is tremendous. For those who haven't read that paper, it is actually available online. We're talking about densities of birds. I'll take canvasbacks, for example, in the wintertime of 5,000 to 6,000, 7,000 birds on these ponds. These birds are coming in there in the evening time, they're spending the night there. Thousands of diving ducks, canvasback, goldeneye, scaup, and bufflehead. And then in the morning, they're dispersing across the American River. And these ponds really mimic the habitat we used to have in the Central Valley along our rivers. When our rivers would flood and come up over their banks, they would create these freshwater wetlands up and down the banks of the river and provide that roosting habitat, the other things that birds need besides food along those river systems. And we just don't have that anymore. So these habitats are very, very important to these birds. And I urge the board and partners to consider an alternative on these mitigation sites that maximize the amount of open water out there. These birds need open water. They need deep open water. They don't want riparian habitat around them. It's not a tule marsh, but deeper open water like what's out there now. So I urge those considerations, take a look at our paper, and really to diversify that for these bird habitats. And along those similar lines we talked about, I could echo a lot of the comments about mitigation in oak trees. one of the things we can do with tree mitigation, there's a lot of trees proposed to be cut down, this 2-to-1 ratio, whatever that turns out to be, to help mitigate the impacts to nesting birds. Please consider adding nest boxes. You know, these trees take a long time to grow. Our cavity nesting birds get impacted immediately, and as these trees grow up, there's a lot of very good literature in our area, published papers showing how a lot of our birds will take to these nest boxes very quickly. We can provide that habitat for them and buffer that population impact, if you will, until those trees get bigger. So with that, thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is it Willie or Wiley?
Andrea Willie. Willie.
And
Say
then
my own
Nancy
name wrong.
Nistern, and then Pam Montgomery. So, good morning.
Thank you. Members of the board, thank you for your hard work to ensure the safety of Sacramento and at the same time carefully protecting and ensuring that there are no adverse effects on river values as stated in the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. As you know, waterbirds migrate from all over the world to winter in Sacramento. These waterbirds roost in open ponds at night to avoid predation and conserve energy, an activity that is critical for their survival. At least half of the most common diving ducks roost in Arudia and Arden ponds. Now, the accepted standard for determining a significant impact on a habitat is when populations drop below self-sustaining numbers. The loss of open water habitat at Arudia Pond meets this definition, and it would reduce the population of waterbirds. Without intervention, the population would not sustain its numbers. Thus, the use of Arudia Pond as a mitigation site itself would require mitigation. There are few open pond areas in the American River where habitat can be created, and the destruction of these habitats of open water should be avoided. The 2020 concept work shows that other sites can be used that do not destroy this critical habitat. In addition, less destructive methods, such as using the water to transport and place riprap or an articulating arm, as mentioned previously, would reduce the needs for mitigation. Also, I'll just mention that protection of the eagle's nest at Arudia Pond was limited to avoiding disturbance and protecting the nest site, but it did not consider the effects of loss of pond foraging habitat. The preservation of Arudia Pond, man-made or not, is possible, and for these reasons should be prioritized. Secondly, there are cavities in live trees and snags that line the main river that provide nest and roosting sites for large numbers of waterbirds, songbirds, owls, and other wildlife. The removal of these mature trees, 700 out of 2,500, is almost 1/3, it's 28%. Would eliminate cavities that are required for nesting and roosting, which again is critical to sustain population numbers. Planting seedlings and saplings at mitigation sites will not produce trees of sufficient size and age to support cavities for many decades. Again, the installation of nest boxes can offset this loss of tree cavities to allow nesting and roosting immediately. This simple and inexpensive intervention can go a long way to preserve this valuable habitat. I urge the board to require the installation of nest boxes and their maintenance for several decades to reduce these impacts. The data from 2 studies conducted on the American River support these recommendations. It is rare to have data obtained from the actual site under consideration. This data should be appropriately valued in the decision-making process for this project. Lastly, I will just mention that the, quote, invasive black locust trees that line the water on Mile 9 that are to be removed is a roosting site for over 200 resident cormorants that will be displaced. Mitigation for this loss of habitat has not been considered, despite my comments on numerous occasions. I ask the board to please address this, and I thank you for your consideration.
Nancy Nistern is up, and then following that will be Pam Montgomery, and then Joshua Thomas. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you. The 2025 CEQA statute and guidelines section mentions what Josh has mentioned today, the statement of overriding consideration. And that's when the decision-making agency, in this case Central Valley Flood Protection Board, has to find a balance for economic, legal, social, technical, technological rather, and environmental benefit of a proposed project against the unavoidable environment risks. And that's your opportunity to say, we need this risk because. In this case, we have quite a few unavoidable, significant impacts in the work that needs to be justified in this regard. And the CEQA Act, California Environmental Quality Act, is a state law requiring public agencies to identify and disclose the potential environmental impacts of their actions, including proposed projects. It compels agencies to consider environmental consequences before approving projects. CEQA aims to inform decision makers and the public about potential impacts and to mitigate or avoid those impacts whenever feasible. Now, I was surprised in reading the report of the amount of significant and unavoidable statements. I always thought that that should be significant and being worked on, as opposed to avoidable, let's move on. In our report, we found quite a few. And in talking with Josh this morning, I think our numbers disagree. So I want to pull that part, but just to let you know that we had quite a few findings on that. Josh is rightfully pointing to the executive summary that mentions only 8. And also, I would like to say that I disagreed with what Hans said at the Corps of Engineer presentation. And I was talking to Corey about that, and he goes, go talk to Hans. He's a nice guy. So I did, and he is a nice guy. And both of them are. And what we've lost in not having stakeholder meetings have been phenomenal. If we had those meetings, we could have a smoother path right now and discuss errors that we might be having. I tried to track one of the pieces of information on the impact statements, and it was in the transportation finding. The finding was a particular impact number, and for that number, if you want to find out, you have to go to Appendix B. It's, then we have a CEQA significant conclusion. It's significant and unavoidable, so it should be something really important. You go to Appendix B, and it lists 4 items, and that is what is summarized in the impact title in the original finding. And then it says, if you want more information, look at the, again, back to the CEQA, the CEQA statute and guidelines. In that, we have exactly the same 4 statements. So this statement in the CEQA guideline and in the appendix is in the report as if it's unique information. And I think that needs to be reviewed. And every time we have a significant finding, we need to be very careful of how we handle that. My recommendation was keep doing the good work. Significant and unavoidable should be taken very seriously, involve efforts to diminish the harmful effects and lower its damaging effect. So we also call for a pause and a review and revisit here on this project. Thank you so very much for the work you do, that the Corps does, and Department of Water Resources. I just wish we could get together informally and iron things out. Thank you so much.
Mike, I'm Pam Montgomery, Joshua Thomas, then I'm going to call a break because I need it. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Pam Montgomery. I'm not a scientist, but I appreciate hearing from all of these very educated, experienced people on this issue. I live near the American River. I've lived here since the early 80s. My husband's been here since the 70s. He has all kinds of stories about rope swings, and Lord knows how he even survived. But down at the American River near Arden, I've raised my kids here. I have 2. We spent countless hours in the summer enjoying the river, learning about nature, watching the beavers. We've kayaked right up to a beaver dam and heard the kits in there. They sound like puppies. I mean, just things that other cities do not have. We've seen large river otters. We thought they were like Labrador retrievers playing in the water because that's what we originally thought we were looking at. It's a precious gem. It's part of our identity as Sacramentans. It cannot be replaced. The process that the Corps is pushing forward with through our city feels like just business as usual. They have not done their due diligence and investigated every possibility. These are precious trees. This habitat is, I mean, these are lives of animals. They can't just pick up and move to another neighborhood. They're going to be killed. A lot of them are going to be pushed up into the neighborhoods, the coyotes, that sort of thing, to cut the turkeys to die on our roads. We need to do better. We obviously all agree flood control is paramount, but we have something so precious to preserve. We can figure out a better way. There is a better way. And just because there was a letter with the master plan put out at some point during COVID and other junctures, I'm sure, nothing ever came to my house. It's until you really see it in action and you realize how drastic this is and what is really being lost, it's impossible to imagine. So for the local residents and community members, more outreach still needs to be done to make them understand what they are losing. So please do investigate other ways to go about this so we don't go beyond where we need to go. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
I guess there's no one after me for a little bit.
Well, there will be. There'll just be a little break for
Okay, thank
comfort.
you. I got to go to, like,
Well,
little boy's room. So,
okay. Thank you for that information.
my name is Joshua Thomas, a resident near Larchmont and unemployed historian. What I wanted to talk about is one of the precious resources of the Parkway, and particularly the Contract 3B area, which is mentioned in the environmental documents, but I don't feel has the substantial analysis which it should merit, and that's heritage oak trees, which are defined in the Sacramento County and City law or code as a California native oak tree that is 60 inches circumference at breast height. Now, at the May meeting for this board, the Army Corps of Engineers said that they would be removing 3 heritage oaks, and I thought, wow, that's great, because we actually obtained the public, from SAFCA through a public records access request, the tree inventory impact data for Contract 3B. And by my counting in that document, there were 35 heritage oaks to be removed for the Contract 3B area. So I thought, why this discrepancy? You know, maybe they've made designs in the last year. That document is dated to March 20th, 2024. I find that extremely unlikely, though, because the number of trees that have been marked for removal for this project has stayed consistent since the 95% design. At the December 12th, 2023 Lower American River Task Force meeting, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers said they would be removing 685 trees. At the May meeting last month, they said they would be removing 685 trees. Mr. Kuroda earlier today said they would be removing 685 trees. And in that document we obtained from SAFCA, the number of trees marked as unprotected is 685. So I'm really curious about that discrepancy between what USACE has now told the public and what these documents we could only obtain through PRAs that USACE wouldn't provide to us through a FOIA request. Why there's this 90%, or 10, 11 time-fold difference between what they're saying they're going to remove in regards to heritage oaks and what appears to be the case. We did have some clarification. They said, oh, 3 heritage oaks and 30 borderline, but that doesn't work either. There's only 2 that maybe you could say are borderline and 33, which are very clearly solidly in the heritage oak category. So I think this does call for more analysis when it comes to heritage oaks, because these really can't be mitigated. You know, oaks can take anywhere from 60 to 120 years to reach heritage size. So if they cut them down, you're never really going to get them back for several generations, if they even take hold on the planting benches. So sorry I went a little bit over. Wow, I'll cut myself off. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to say 10 minutes, because before I said 5 and it went to 9, but that was because of Member Andrews. So we're going to take a 10-minute break. Thank you. Okay, we can do that now.
Is it going to be I'm taking notes.
That was to allow you the opportunity to find your seat, including apparently the board staff. Welcome back. Thank you for allowing that quote, end quote, 10-minute break. Mr. Thomas was there. Okay. Well, I'll continue with the cards, the request to speak that we have. Oh my. Is it Katie? CATIC is the way I see it, Arena. Okay, just a second here. And following you, Betsy Weiland, and then Adele Kruger.
Thank you.
Whoops. No, Sandy Schuler, and then Betsy Weiland. These are flying on my lap here. So, good morning still.
Good morning.
Please say your name.
Good morning. My name is Katie Arena. I'm not a local Sacramento resident. I moved here about a year ago. I'm an environmental science by trade. I've worked in Florida and Oregon and now Sacramento. I live relatively close to the American River and I utilize it pretty much every day, and I do love it. I love observing the natural biodiversity, and it's super beautiful, and I see tons of people, members of our community, enjoying it as well. I actually work under the SWIP permit, which is Stormwater Pollution Prevention, and my concerns particularly regarding this policy is the construction. While y'all recommend it's pretty minor implications, that's kind of I don't really agree with that. And again, with the water board, I'm a little more active and a little more knowledge-based regarding that, but they also kind of act in the same ways by implementing pollution into our waterways, but then mitigating the overall problem of that by just saying, oh, it's just minor implications that in our lifetime we might not see the impacts, but overall I think it will be negative to our waterways. I think destruction of natural habitat just is not the option, and that is shown in 2023. Both FEMA here in the United States had done an ecosystem service evaluation, and then Italy also had one in Sicily, which both showed dramatically that wetland-based flood infrastructure provided strong economic returns, stronger than anything that was engineered through water filtration, habitat restoration, climate regulation, as well as flood control. All of these are obtained through natural biodiversity. Again, just back to the waters background that I have, I know through the infrastructure of these canals and levees, that's going to increase water viscosity running through these ways, which is ultimately going to increase erosion, in my opinion. I don't know, I've seen examples like Sonoma Valley is experiencing pretty detrimental floods pretty regularly, and that's all due to the development creating ultimately monoculture in this 2-to-1 tree chop down and replant plan. While it sounds great, in Florida we had similar legislation put into place in regards to swamplands. And again, agreeing with all of my colleagues and peers here,
we didn't see the benefits in anyone's lifetime and continue to see the devastating effects of the monoculture on biodiversity for both flora and fauna of native species, which is huge for us overall. So thank you. I know I didn't really communicate too well, but I think just biodiversity is the solution. And like I said, through FEMA and Italy's evaluations, there are ways to implement natural floodplain legislation and protection. Thank you.
After Sandy Schuler will be Betsy Weiland, and then Adele Kruger.
I'm not speaking. I wrote a note on my card. Betsy.
I didn't hear what you said as you were walking up.
I didn't say anything yet.
Oh, Betsy Weiland's not speaking?
I have hearing aids.
Betsy Weiland's not
so-
speaking.
Okay. Okay.
Are you Sandy
Good morning, President Jane Dolan and board members. My name is.
Give your name.
Okay,
You will.
I'm getting there. My name is Sandy Schuler. I'm a consulting electrical engineer specializing in the water and wastewater industry, and I'm here today as both professional and a deeply concerned citizen. I want to begin by saying that I fully support levee improvements. Public safety is essential, but also I support the work of the American River Trees Group, like Bill Avery that spoke in May, and Bill Bratton and Candace, and Josh had a good point about the heritage oaks. And I believe we can and must do both, protect our communities and preserve the natural habitat that makes Sacramento so special. Contract 3B as currently designed would remove 685, we won't forget that number, 685 trees and large areas of vegetation along the American River. These aren't just trees, they are the lungs of our city. They absorb pollutions and particulate matter, they filter noise, and they provide shade, and they are homes to countless species of birds and wildlife. This stretch of the river, the Contract 3B stretch of the river, is surrounded by major roads. We have Watt Avenue, Howell Avenue, American River Drive, La Riviera, Folsom Boulevard, Highway 50. Every day, these roads generate noise and pollution. The trees and vegetation along the river are our buffer. They are our protection. They are our peace. Sometimes in the urgency of engineering and construction, we forget the bigger picture, but we must remember we are the stewards of the river. What we choose to protect today will define the legacy we leave tomorrow. I urge you to consider nature-based alternatives for Construction 3B, alternatives that already been proposed by engineers and scientists who care deeply about both safety and sustainability. Let's make this a win-win for our city and our environment and our future. And I want to thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Ms. Weiland, I apologize, I didn't see the note you wrote. I don't need to speak, I'm opposed to the project as it currently is proposed. You're with the Save the American River Association, so you got remarks in there anyway. Kristen Ely? LD? Krista? Okay. And then Adele Kruger, and then Dan. Dan. Starts with P, but I think it's Skowski. Good afternoon.
Hi, thank you. My name is
No,
Chris.
still morning.
Oh, good morning. Is it still morning? Feels like afternoon. My name is Krista Ely. My background is environmental science. I studied mostly water. However, I worked in the air quality field for the California Air Resources Board. I'm now retired. So this is my first time on the other side of the table, so to speak. But one thing that or not just one thing, but about the California Air Resources Board is that we did a lot of stakeholder outreach meetings with the public, evening meetings beforehand, before you get to the board, before you get to these public comments. This seems like it's the first time that the public is able to speak instead of the presented NGOs in the track. So I think we all agree that the American River is a jewel, and it is just amazing. I'm a cyclist. I now have more time to get out there and enjoy it, and there's nothing like it. I've been, traveled the world and done a lot of hiking, but it is teeming with wildlife. I would like you to pause to focus on just strategic areas on the river. It doesn't make sense to me to do the clear cutting. There are things like selective forestry, and I guess I'm a little surprised that there are no foresters in the room. Usually what happens when you replant trees, it's fairly well known. Research done 2 to 1, I mean, that's probably why the numbers are doubled on the planting, is that we're taking out 685 and we're doubling the numbers planted. That's because in the first 2 years, 50% of those plants will die. So, and I've heard numbers that's drastic. I had a colleague that did planting of trees for the Forestry Service when she was younger, and it was 1 out of 3. So I don't think we're gaining more. Again, a lot of great comments have been made. I would urge preservation, strategic planning, working with the public, the real public. Acknowledge us that we are professionals just like you are, and that there is a community. Listen to us. I think there's one other thing. I think the engineering is overestimated. I'm not an engineer. My husband is. He couldn't make it to this meeting. But it's unclear to me. What we used to do, we would walk through the actual calculations in a more informal setting, because in something like this, it's too much information, right? So walk through the actual engineering calculations. It's unclear to me why the 2 greatest storms, just a linear line drawn, that it's going to get worse, 500 flood. That doesn't make sense. That didn't make sense to my husband in just that one meeting. Just doubling the number of the highest flow of the water doesn't make sense. Why do you double it? I don't know. Why isn't it less? Why isn't it more? There's not enough, I guess, reason in this process. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan, are you Dan? And you're going to say your name, so then I will know. And then Ashley Langdon, and then Brenda Guston.
Dan Piskowski. Good morning, President Dolan, members of the
Petoskey.
board. I'm a degreed arborist who has lived and worked in Sacramento for the past 34 years. And it's good to see that they reduced the removal from 2,500 to 685 trees, but they could do better. I've worked on hundreds of projects, and a lot of it comes down to money. And if they do a more focused approach with smaller equipment, because it costs more money. You know, they want to get the biggest equipment they can in there and move the soil. It's about dollars. I've worked, like I said, on a lot of projects. And the thing about the mitigation, it says 2 for 1. Well, the whole point we're missing is you have to look at leaf surface area and carbon dioxide sequestration. Because that's the carbon dioxide sequestration is what's helping us fight climate change. But we're exacerbating the problem by cutting down all these trees. And so the CO2 sequestration should be a matrix in the EIR. Now, when the city did their 2023 climate action plan, they didn't include that. So they're talking about all these things we're going to do with battery powered cars and stuff to cut down the CO2, but they're not factoring in all the trees that are being removed and the CO2 sequestration we're losing. And if they did that, it'd be blown away, because they've cut down more trees in the last 10 years than in the prior 20. I live here, I bike everywhere. I know the trees in the city. In fact, this new building here, there's no mature trees. You know why? Because they let them clear cut them. And that's what's happening. But nobody wants to see the bigger picture. Like Sacramento, like we're in trouble. And so we really need to look at this matrix on CO2 sequestration, because that's going to give us a more accurate impact on what we're doing to the environment. The other thing about on the existing project was there was no tree protection. Like the trees they were saving, there's no fencing around it. And so here's one with a porta potty. So they're driving there every day, parking underneath it, back and forth. When you compact the soil, it's going to harm the tree, and it's the slow death. So, and here on the other, no fencing. So they really need to have some tree protection in there in order, like we're trying to save these trees. And are we really saving them by letting all this soil compaction happen underneath the drip line? And it's pretty simple. And they could do a method. Okay, we need to put the porta potty in the shade. You can put down geotextile, come in with 6 inches of AB, and then they can park under the tree. Okay, so there's solutions for everything. I've been doing this for so long. It's there's always a solution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You're Ashley.
I'm Ashley, yeah.
Okay. And then Brenda Gusson, and then Mr. Spalding.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Go.
My name is Ashley Langdon, and I live here in Sacramento, in East Sac. I don't live along the river, although I really wish that I did. But I visit the river 3 to 4 times a week. I'm out there running all the trails, and I'm out there with my kids. I moved here about 11 years ago from the Bay Area, where we greatly appreciate proximity to nature. And I think the Bay Area embraces that daily. I came here and I didn't even know about the American River. It wasn't something that I grew up knowing about. But now that I'm here, the river, and I'm gonna get emotional, but the river is why I stay here. It's such a gem that we live here. And I don't know where you guys recreate when you need nature, but I'm guessing it's not the river, if this is sort of the consensus that we have. I'm guessing it's Yosemite, or you head to the Bay Area, or Tahoe, or somewhere far, but you don't need to go far. Nature is right here. So, I wrote a book about the trails on the river, and I'm so much more emotional than I thought I would be right now. I, for years, tracked all the trails on the river. There are 18 chapters in my book. It goes from the bottom of the river up to Folsom Lake is chapter 18. Chapter 3 is Paradise Beach, gone. It's totally raked over. It's still a chapter that I could go to, but it is not scenic anymore. Chapter 4 is Sac State and the loop up to Watt Avenue. Graded down. It's not nice anymore. You can bike it, but you can't enjoy the trails in the way that you could before. Chapter 5 is Watt Avenue, and it's at risk. Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, that's what we're talking about right now. So I'm out there all the time, and some of us can't drive all the way, to get out of town, to be in nature, and we need it daily. That's all I'll say.
Brenda
Good morning.
Gusson, and then Mr. Spalding. Good morning.
Morning,
Still.
not fair to follow Ashley. So, Ashley, this is Brenda Guston. To me, ecological means a balance of ecology, which is the natural science of relationship among living organisms and the environment, which includes us. Logical means clear, sound reasoning and sensible. Let's improve Contract 3B so it actually is ecological. This doesn't make sense to me. As you are local lead agency and representative, please, and we move forward in your review, I request that you dig deeper. Please formally arrange a qualitative, not on Zoom, and not presentational, meeting of American River Trees delegation of professionals to discuss feasible alternatives directly. Please do not certify the final unless Contract 3B is removed for improvement to be reissued with better bioengineering techniques. Please request usage If they can specifically identify both on maps and by staking on site exactly which areas require erosion protection and removal of trees detrimental to levee toe sustainability, and which specific trees are targeted for removal due to construction methods and means. We have asked this question multiple meetings and correspondence with no reply. Although 685 trees are identified, maybe, for removal, contractors have discretion to remove the trees more than the 685, not experts. A 2-to-1 ratio does not replace old growth. 3 to 35 heritage oaks may be lost forever. 685 trees represent 27.4% of 2,500 trees, not 10%. Again, illogical. Please consider implementing erosion protection projects in a more targeted, incremental method with smaller equipment to avoid removing wide swaths of riparian habitat all at once. It is my understanding that the final SEIR has not received the required Wild and Scenic River Section 7 project approval from the National Park Service. Their insight on the proposed project included recommendations for bioengineering that are not included in the final. Is it even possible for the ROD and NOD to be issued without this required approval? Please advise if this information is current and accurate. And lastly, please thoroughly review Civil Engineer William Bratton's detailed information and solutions addressing claimed infeasibility of bioengineering approaches, which are actually feasible with proper considerations, such as either easily handled by proper engineering design, regular maintenance, or construction at the appropriate time of year, some of which were originally planned in the 2015 GRR, yet were not included in the final. So please take a deeper look, board. We will appreciate that, and we do appreciate you, and we appreciate all the work, but we need to dig deep on this particular area of 3B. Thank you.
Mr. Spalding.
Good morning, President Dolan, board members, Mr. Leaf. Thank you for providing additional time today for these public comments. You've heard from many members of the public today. These are the type of conversations that should have occurred 5 years ago. These should have occurred much, much earlier in the process. I'm requesting the Central Valley Flood Protection Board extend your review period for the CEQA documents for at least 90 days. There are many CEQA deficiencies in the final EIR, despite that it's over 8,000 pages. And you really need to do a deeper dive in them before you approve them. I want to give you just to sum up a couple of things. The American River Parkway is not a city park. It's the only federal and state designated wild and scenic river through a metropolitan area in the country. It generates over $365 million a year for the local economy. The cumulative effects of contracts 1 and 2 and now 3B threaten not only the parkway's habitat, but also that economic engine. There are many deficiencies, CEQA deficiencies in the final EIR. There are 21 studies identified as mitigation. Under CEQA, performing a study in lieu of mitigation is only allowed under extraordinary circumstances. These studies should be completed before any construction begins. There's 24 mostly boilerplate mitigation measures to be implemented. Again, under CEQA, Section 15097, you need to determine the mitigation reporting and monitoring program. You need to determine what gets reported to who and how often to ensure that it's properly mitigated. The bioengineering alternatives that Dr. Bill Avery presented at the May 23 board meeting protect the levee prism by providing protection at the bank toe in the same manner that the Corps' more destructive rock toes and other techniques do. One of the Corps' engineering consultants expressed interest in these. Let's discuss cobble, branch packing, crib walls, brush mattresses, core blocks, fascines, and other tree and plant species, as well as less destructive techniques. Many of the comments in the 964 individual comment letters went unanswered. In particular, there were questions about the increase in assurance that the Lower American River Common Features Project will provide 200-year flood protection along the river. The source of that analysis was not provided, though it was asked for. According to the 2016 GRR, the entire American River Common Features Project moves the assurance from 45% to 60% and does not provide a 90% assurance of passing a 1 in 200-year flood event. You need to look into this. One last point, the main body of the environmental report is 387 pages. The main report plus appendices totals 8,016 pages. Guess how long Chapter 7, Public Involvement Coordination and Review of the Draft Supplemental EIS/EIR is? That chapter is 1 page. This is the 1-page Chapter 7. That's why there were 964 public comments, totaling 3,194 pages, and so many people come into these meetings and speaking with facts and speaking with feelings today. As John Cameron said, this isn't a battle, it's a partnership. Let's make the B in Contract 3B stand for best. Let's make this the best part of the American River Common Features Project. It's the last link. Let's not let it be the worst link. Let's make it the best link. Thank you for your time.
There are no more cards that have been given for speakers, so I want to go to the room. Someone has stood up, so come forward. If there's any who feel moved to do that, that'd be great. Just state your name, please.
Hi, my name is Naz Stieber. I'm a resident of Sacramento. I've lived here for over 40 years, and I visit the river regularly. I would like to say that Sac State, that stretch, is an example of what you're planning. This is your submission to the people of your best work. And it is absolutely decimated. It looks like a dystopian deathscape, as everyone who's spoken, who's visited it, has shared. If you vote for this plan now as it stands, I would ask you why you would do that. No one seems to be in support in the community. It would be irresponsible and negligent given the overwhelming community opposition to this plan and the slapdash, glaring omissions, inconsistencies, and deficiencies that seem to have not been addressed. Please don't blow us off as nature nuts against progress. There is a lot of science in opposition in this room. Everyone who has spoken seems to agree with flood mitigation, but it must be done thoughtfully, respectfully, and dutifully. Preservation must be paramount, not restoration. We all live here and we're all connected to this beautiful place. So please do collaborate with the community, the people that you are affecting, not just the people that live near the river and use it for recreation. It affects all of us because we're all connected. So I definitely ask you to please don't just go the fastest route, pick the best route. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room that wants to come forward? Are there any hands up? Mr. Knapp? Oh, we have a hand up. Okay. You don't get another 3 minutes, though, ma'am.
Correct. So we had some friends come.
Please tell me your name
Pam
again.
Montgomery. We had some friends come from Hawaii, and they've hosted us there. It's Hawaii. We thought, what are we going to do with them? So we went rafting, and when we had a fantastic time. You literally can see one house from Sunrise to Kingsford. And when we got out, my friend Sarah said, I thought we were rafting through the middle of town and that we were just going to float up to a Target. And I said, nope, this is our American River Parkway. It's wild, it's a free living place, and they were extremely impressed from Hawaii. So, yeah. I mean, it's precious. So let's pause and make it right. Thank you.
You're in 3 different blocks, so I'm gonna look. There. You two are just standing because you're standing. Okay. There. I know, he told me he likes to stand, so I'm not gonna ask him up again. Hello, sir.
You can ask me up again if you want. I have more to say.
We'll talk to you again at the break. You're very interesting. Nope, okay, she's like, don't. Hmm? Brenda Guston? You're sneaking up there. Go fast.
Well, I just wanted to say.
We appreciate all the things you send to us in writing. It actually gives us more time to read and absorb.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank
go
you.
on.
Brenda Guston, I just wanted to share a very quick story. My teachers, 2 of them from India, and one recently came to this area of the river, and he stood and he could not believe he's traveled the world, and he lives at the Ganga and near the Himalayas.
Yeah.
And he said, I have never seen a river this alive in all of my time of traveling. And he said, good work. I'm glad you're on your dharmic path to preserve it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
Hi, Margaret Munger again. Definitely more people need to know about what's happening so that they can give input. Every person I talk to about this has no idea what's going on. I spoke to a professor at Sac State. She sees what's happened there. She had no idea there were the plans to go so much further with it. And so I feel like definitely I agree with the idea of having community meetings where it's able to be communicated to way more people. It's just, it feels like it's just kind of under everyone's radar. Yeah.
Radar.
Sorry, my words are not coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Any hands up online? L. Mill? Is that a Ms. or a Mr.? L. Mill, you're able to unmute yourself and give us your comment. We're also used to this, talking to a room, but it's actually somebody on a screen, and it's bizarre. Please unmute and give us your name and speak. From our part, we would be able to hear you if you would talk. Ma'am, I don't know all of the procedures here, but Mr. Knapp is a little guru because he's a lot younger, and he says you can talk. Okay, maybe we'll come back to you and we'll go to Laura M. You need to unmute yourself. You're unmuted at our end, and you can speak.
Okay, thank you very much.
There's someone there.
I was on two. Can you
Please,
hear me now?
please give me your full name.
Okay, my name is Laura Mills.
Hello.
And I was on their computer because I was on my lunch hour, but it wasn't logging into Zoom, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
I grew up along the American River. I've lived here my whole life. I grew up swimming in the river instead of my swimming pool. And I was going to write down everybody I agreed with, but there's so many of them that I stopped making a list. I oppose this project. I oppose what I saw the first time I drove across the bridge going to Sac State, the H Street Bridge, and I just was appalled. And if that is the plan for this area between Watt and Howe, I just want to express my agreement with everybody, the scientists, the biologists, that it's a horrible idea. And trees provide natural erosion control. And yes, they get washed out naturally by Mother Nature and they fall down and new trees replace them. And planting little seedlings and saplings is not mitigation. We need to find a way to do flood protection that is natural and does not destroy what Mother Nature has built. And that is my comment.
Thank you. I'm going to just say this now because I really feel the need. Is there someone from the project team other than the flood board that can come forward and describe whether or not this project is different or the same as H Street? Because I've heard a lot of comments that they don't want another H Street. So who's going to come forward and clarify? Mr. Kuroda.
Good afternoon, Hans Kuroda with the Corps. Yeah, so we understand, we know that the contracts 1 and 2 by Sacramento State and Campus Commons, they were highly impactful to the vegetation that existed out there. And it was necessary because that was the highest risk location along the river system, the narrowest section of the channel, highest velocities. And so the footprints of the designs had to be large in order to adequately protect the levee and the community behind the levee. However, the benefits provided by those projects translated to smaller footprints upstream. We opened up that choke point with contract 2, and we're able to, with contracts 3B, reduce the size of the footprints. So in contract 3B, we are not clearing the channel. We are impacting some trees, yes, but it is the minimum, absolute minimum we need to in order to protect the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I'm inappropriate, but I'm going to do it anyway. You have a target in these documents about the number of trees that appear to need to be removed. Is there a possibility that you don't reach that target?
Yes, so great question. The number of trees included in the document as slated for removal, it's based on the 65% design footprint. That is a conservative footprint. As we've developed designs from 65% to where they are now at 100%, we've been refining that footprint. So the actual number is less than that 685 trees. The reason why those numbers are higher in the environmental document is because we need to ensure there's coverage for unknowns that we may encounter during construction. That does not mean our contractor has free rein to take out any other tree they want. There is a process. They are not allowed to remove any trees. There is a process where they can request approval to remove trees, but that's done given in coordination with county parks and others to ensure there's an actual need for that tree to come be removed to permit construction to proceed or for safety purposes of the construction crews.
Okay. Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Yes. I do know that some of it's waiting, but I'm going to respect my board members. So, Member Countryman?
Just quickly, one of the testifiers today said there was some uncertainty about heritage oaks. Is it 3 or is it 35? So what is your estimate of how many heritage oaks will be impacted by this, the 3B?
Thank you, Mr. Countryman. Yes, so as I stated on the 23rd, the number of heritage oaks we're impacting with contract 3B is 3. 3 heritage oaks. Thanks.
Is there a possibility that that wouldn't happen?
It's 3.
It's 3. No shouting there forward. You can come forward in a second, okay?
I want to be able to rebut.
You can, but I'm going to go to my board. Relax. I'm not going to kick you out. Mr. Vines? That was your question, the one that I had. Don't move, but I forgot your name. You want to come forward and say something? You're Mr. Bratton, right? Okay. We got your paper.
Okay, so the
We got your
definition.
papers, so
Yes,
appreciate
thank you.
that.
Hopefully you've
Okay.
been reading them.
You bet.
Well,
Absolutely,
I
more
wanted to
than once.
rebut his statement about there being only 3 heritage oaks being removed, because the definition of a heritage oak is anything, it's what Dr. Dr. Josh said. There's way more heritage oaks. It's way more than 3. I mean, just at Larchmont alone, there's one definitely, the one that's down the slope from the one we call Thor, that's right in the middle of the equipment ramp, is over 300 years old. And then there's several others. It's definitely not 3. Maybe Josh can do a better job, but I'm just saying that's not true.
No, I appreciate that. And your letter says it. Many of them said that, all that stuff. It's
Right.
something to investigate, get clarification.
Josh made it very clear what the definition of a heritage oak. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's way more than 3.
No, and I think that we understand that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right. As long as I'm up here, I just wanted to.
as long as you're up there.
No, I think it's important to know the reason people didn't know about this project is because this is all we got in the mail. And not all of us got that. Yeah, not everyone got this, but I would have thrown this away had I not been, alerted to the fact I should be looking for it. It basically has no information other than we're going to do an erosion project, and you can find more information on our website. And then I expect the public to go in and read thousands of pages to somehow figure this out. It should have been a multi-page color brochure with maps of where all the trees are going to be removed, where the erosion work's going to be, so that we don't have to do that, because the public has no capability to understand those reports. So anyway, the public participation has been absolutely atrocious throughout this
Mr.
process.
Broughton.
Okay, thank you.
We read what you have given to us. We got that. There's some appreciation there.
President Dolan, may I?
We do have one online that I am going to call on, but I'm going to ask our attorney to give a little bit of help here of this back and forth that's
I'm
going
just
on.
going to ask the members of the gallery to please refrain from speaking over people when they're at the podium. It's not being captured on the transcript, and it's not helpful to the process. So if you'd like to contribute something, then please raise your hand, and President Dolan can call you up to the podium. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, but I'm the one who asked someone from the court to come up, and I did not intend to have this, folks we've already heard from that you don't agree with him. I just wanted him to say that. If we keep doing the back and forth, it's going to be disruptive. It's not helpful to us. It's not helpful to the board to understand that. We will. Define heritage oak. We'll get some more information on that. I'm there. I live in Chico. We got Bidwell Park. We got heritage oaks. We're going to do some research on these things. That's why we're getting information today and haven't scheduled other that. You weren't a lot of help. But thank you very much. You're trying. Mr. Spalding, 1 minute, and then I'm going to call the person online, and then I'm going to go back to my board.
1 minute, and I will try to help. A heritage oak is an oak tree that's measured 60 degrees in circumference at 4.5 feet breast height. But my point is, this is why we've been asking for in-person meetings of the Bank Protection Working Group. This is why we need to sit down. This is why we need to take at least 90 extra days to look at this environmental report. We need to have these types of questions and answers and discussions, and in a room where we can have an exchange of information. This gets us nowhere and just creates a battle. This is a partnership. It's not a battle. Let's get in the same room. Let's arrange a series of meetings over the next 90 days and see what we can work out together. Thank you.
Just to prove we read what you said, you wrote that to us more than once, so thank you. I'm going to go to the online. I was disruptive to their being called on the online, so the first one I'm going to call up would be Justin Augustine, from whom we've received numerous missives. And I actually don't know if you're a man or a woman. Just
Can you guys hear me?
Now I know. Mr. Augustine, you're on.
Thank you. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. This is Justin Augustine, and as you know, I'm with the Center for Biological Diversity. I know I am repeating what many have already said, but it bears reiterating that it really is impossible to overstate how important the 3B forest is to so many people. You know, for me personally, just driving across the Watt Avenue Bridge and looking out at the river and its forest, that helps my mental health literally every day. It really does. And for the public, I would say that this forest we're talking about is just as important as the forests of our national parks here in California, and perhaps more important, as many people have said, given its proximity to an urban center. And in fact, that's why the Lower American River was protected in 1981 as a wild and scenic river, because the river, together with its forest, is the magical place people have described. And to me, I think that's what's most troubling to a lot of us, is that we're having to ask you at the 11th hour to help protect a forest we all thought was already protected. And so at this point, you all are really the only ones left who can change 3B's trajectory. And so I'll just wrap up by saying that, as many people have just asked, such as Pete, I hope you'll actually go the route of finding a solution that doesn't do the damage that's currently proposed. That forest has taken 100 years and more to be what it is, and so the impacts are not going to only be short-term, as we're being told. They are very much going to be long-term as well. And so I firmly believe that with your help, we can find a better solution than the one that's currently on the table. Many research agencies, many members of the public laid out alternative ideas, so I just respectfully ask that you explore that route before approving 3B. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bill Avery, Mr. Avery, you're online. You can unmute and talk. Or not. Mr. Avery?
There, I think I'm unmuted now.
I heard you, so you are unmuted.
Okay, good. My name is William Avery. Thank you for the opportunity to speak via Zoom. You have before you an important decision. I urge you to think carefully. Consider that there is no emergency in establishing bank protection for the remaining Lower American River segments. Actual flood protection is already insured for 160,000 CFS. Erosion of the remaining segments is an extremely slow process, and none of the segments in question are vulnerable to mass wasting that would threaten the levee. This we understand from hydrology modeling, geomorphology, and engineering principles, and the presence of healthy vegetatively armored existing banks. Given that there isn't an emergency, that so much will be lost if a decision to go ahead is made, that bioengineering alternatives were not properly studied for feasibility, and that such studies were both required by law and promised by USACE, we urge you to put a hold on moving forward, specifically with the segments of C3B that involve clearing riparian habitat and constructing launchable rock tows and launchable rock trenches. In our technical memo presented to you on May 23rd, 2025, we discussed why bioengineering is feasible. These reasons include the known bank armoring capability of trees, shrubs, and grasses, the relatively straight and wide stretches of the river, the considerable distance from the river's edge to the projected levee prism, the width and composition of additional existing protective berms, the low flow velocities predicted by USACE for 160,000 CFS, for example, 0 feet per second at the top and 3 to 4 feet per second at the riverside bank below Larchmont Park, and the availability of a wide array of bioengineering techniques known to be useful under these conditions. We presented several examples of methods that would be feasible based on USACE's own engineering guidelines. Some of these methods include the use of rounded cobbles such as 6- applied to the toe of existing banks, graded appropriately, layered with smaller cobble and pebbles to improve salmon and spawning habitat, branch packing, fascines, small stature crib walls of wooden posts or core blocks, overplanted with white alder, willows, and other appropriate riparian vegetation. Some banks literally only need spot fixes to meet a 50-year project objective. Small machinery could be used for all of these approaches, further reducing the project footprint. Under the modeled flow for 160,000 CFS, these methods combined with stabilizing power of healthy riparian root networks would all ensure bank protection and thus levee protection. At an absolute bare minimum, these and other methods should be thoroughly studied for feasibility and economic analysis. And then these alternatives should be presented to the board and to the public for consideration. Not only does this follow the precautionary approach to preserving the riparian forest and attributes of a federally and state designated wild and scenic river, it also would be the due diligence required by federal and state law. We urge you to put a pause on the proposed plans for C3B, segments 36, 38, 39, 311, 41, and 43. Those were the proposed launchable rock tows and trenches located in riparian habitat. We urge you to ask USACE to thoroughly investigate the bioengineering alternatives we have suggested, as well as any other appropriate methods that might be applicable, as suggested by their own ERDIC and EWN divisions, for example, with the goal of retaining the riparian habitat value, the recreation value and erosion protection of riparian forests and the riparian strips. We ask that these alternatives be presented to you and to the public and thoroughly and openly discussed for feasibility and economic viability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Avery. I'm looking here at the paper that you gave us, so you're giving it to us again, so thanks. One other hand came up online, Beth S. So Beth S., you can unmute and please give us your whole name. Mr. Knapp, do you have any indication that she's unmuting?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Please
Okay,
give us
great.
your name.
I haven't done this. Mary Beth Schwer. I couldn't figure out how to change the default on the Zoom. My name is Mary Beth Schwer. I have been on the river, literally paddling. It fills my heart and spirit, or living adjacent to it for 40 years. And I was active in every prior work project on this levee. I had no idea this huge destructive design was coming until it was pretty much a done deal. But I can tell you I've come to every task force since I found out. My graduate degrees and my work involve risk assessment. I have a couple comments. The erosion risk assessment is so problematic. The expert opinion elicitation method, that was developed to second guess human military strategies, not second guess nature. There just hasn't been adequate data to inform decisions. The panelists differed by 50,000%, as you heard last time. At the uppermost point of the project, Upper Larchmont at Sunset Point, one panelist did not see a high risk needing riprap, just a task that needed to be done to replace some river cobble. And that can be done with small bobcat loaders, saving hundreds of trees in that particular zone that already stabilized the banks and saving threatened heritage oaks, including the beloved 300-year-old valley oak that we're still not sure is one of the three or not one of the three. This area is simply not a weak link in the flood protection system. I also want to say that it's well known in risk assessment science that we humans magnify our perception of risks that we don't control, and we have fears way out of proportion to the factual levels of risk. The report talks about 1 to the -5. That's 10 in a million. You'd get 10 of that outcome only 10 times in a million rolls of the dice. It's a really small factual level of risk. And as a society, we accept risks daily, magnitudes higher. A car, 100 to 1,000 times higher. Smoking, 1,000 to 10,000 times higher. I really urge you, public policy needs to consider the science, not the fear or the rhetoric of that very small risk, which is being presented in these reports as a basis to justify a massive engineering approach that would devastate irreversibly the Wild and Scenic River. And I'll just mention the Wild and Scenic River, when it was designated, even though it had some prior human infrastructure, but there was confidence because there were supposedly protections in place to ensure preservation of the riparian forest, not restoration, preservation of the riparian forest. There are so many feasible alternatives that would save the trees using nimble, small equipment, native cobble, not clearing the whole banks. I'm going to make an analogy here. The laws directly protect endangered species, but this project would needlessly and irreversibly destroy miles of pristine riparian forest, which is a highly endangered habitat, and it would decimate a unique and endangered phenomenon of a local wilderness and wildlife experience, self-sustaining in the middle of an urban area, and it's available to people of all walks of life. The wildlife corridor is really vital. It's also really vulnerable. It's a narrow ribbon from the mountains to the ocean. The connectivity has already suffered damaging breaks due to the clear cutting of the forests in those downstream project areas. And the proposed mitigation site, it's 8 miles downstream of Project 3B. That's the wrong direction to help wildlife survive by connecting to wild populations up the hill. It's a little like the doctor saying, the artery had a blockage, but oops, we put the stent on the wrong side of the clot. So instead of major loss of trees, it's still major. The Upper Larchmont Sunset Point, for example, could become a poster child for the right way to work within a wild and scenic river with velvet gloves, instead of using riprap and large equipment worthy of a major highway project. Thank you so much for your time.
Mary Beth, would you be so kind as to spell your last name?
Yes, SCHWEHR.
Thank you.
And I submitted a written comment as well with additional information as well.
I think that I saw that. I was going to ask you if you would do that. Everything is recorded, and we do have a transcript, but thank you for reminding me that you sent us something in writing. Appreciate it. I thought you said you had to go home. No, I had to go too. Oh.
I actually want to say something nice about the designers.
Say your name again, please, sir. I can't remember.
Thank you. My name's Joshua Thomas.
Oh, got it now.
This is the sequel.
You don't get 3 minutes.
Okay. I just want to say, you know, I've looked through probably thousands of pages of received through public records access requests. You know, when the draft SCIR SCIS came out, I was really angry looking at it because it looked like they had ignored a lot of the recommendations that had been done or made in earlier studies. So, but when I looked through the correspondences in the PRA requests between, you know, the technical advisory committee members, people like Brian Wardman, Chuck Watson, Tom Smith, Dan Milkey, what I did find is that, you know, they really thought very hard about this, and they had a lot of discussions, and I actually kind of came to like them a little bit. So, you know, I do think they're thoughtful. You know, I'm confused about the discrepancy between what they've said in public and what I've seen in some of the private documents, particularly for Heritage Oaks. And, you know, I've gone and I've mapped out the location of all the Heritage Oaks in the Contract 3B South area. And, you know, I would love to go out with, you know, Brian Wardman or Mr. Crota. Is it Dan? I don't remember first name. Or anyone from, you know, NHC or USA Sacramento, and you know, they could show us, you know, which trees are going to be removed in the footprint, so we can kind of reconcile these differences. Anyways, this is a request I'm making.
All right. Got it. Thanks. That appears to end public comment today. You folks that come regularly know that we don't just say you can never talk to us, except the last meeting when I said we had to leave the room. Okay. So I'm going to ask board members if they want to make any comments, ask questions, whatever. I'm absorbing. I'm not going to do any more. Member Andrews? Not this time. Yeah, we do our homework. Vice President?
I don't know. We'll go to Joe.
I'm going to Member Grego. Member Countryman, how are you?
I'm good. The one thing it seems like we can resolve at least is the number of heritage oaks impacted by this project. I would hope that our staff would review this issue and get back to us confirming the Corps' finding that it's 3, not 35. I mean, that's a significant difference, and heritage oaks are pretty significant trees. So I would like to make sure when we have our final discussion about approving or disapproving this, that we can say definitely this is what it is. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm looking at Mr. Brown. Could you write that down and get back to us?
Now, we'll be happy to get back to you and confirm that number. Thank you.
Okay. Very precisely. Okay. Member Countryman, nothing else this time? Okay. Member Grego? You weren't sure, Mr. Vice President, are you? You're good? You're good? You know, we need Brenda to give us a breathing exercise here. Okay. Thank you to all of you who came. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for your comments. We really do appreciate them. More so, I'm going to say we appreciate when you put them in writing. I have a binder back here with those because when I take the notes of what you said and then I go home and I can't read mine, and as I said before, Sister Marie Joseph would say, Jane, your penmanship is horrible. So thank you for that. Thank you to the folks online and for keeping them brief. So there you are. We're wrapped up for today. I already haven't been able to sleep with what I'm reading, so gave me some more, which is all right. I asked for it. Board members and staff. Hey, staff, you want to say anything? Anybody brave? Okay, not. All right. We have some upcoming meetings. We'll just skip everyone saying what they've done. What? Oh, I wrote it down. You told me to, and I wrote it down. The advisory committee is going to meet on June 24th. We do it in person at the Central Valley Flood Protection Board offices in the basement, but that also is available online. Our next board meeting is June 27th. We're going to meet in this building. I don't know if it's in this room or another room. It's kind of like I say, another meeting, another venue. I kind of like this one.
It's next door.
I'm going to call upstairs and ask if we can stay. He's telling me somewhere else, but it's going to be in this building. And then a board meeting on July 18th, same thing, this building. Coordinating committee is July 22nd. That meeting is in person at the West Sacramento City Hall building, free parking, by the way, and that will also be hybrid. Please note what I said before. Our meeting of June 27th does not have this subject matter on the agenda. It doesn't mean we're not trying to deal with it, but it just means that we're doing our homework, okay? So, and we don't have a specific date for when we're actually going to have the meeting where we're going to be asked to make that decision or vote, but we'll give you notice. We won't send you a postcard that you can't read. Okay. So I think we're done. So the good of the order. Thank you all. Meeting is adjourned.